Sons of Thunder is a pretty cool name for a channel, though.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sons of Thunder. Today, we are going into part 2 of Mormon history. So, if you were here last week and you saw part 1 of our Mormon history, you would hear that we covered a ton of stuff on the life of Joseph Smith. That video ended up being 3 hours long. And don't worry, we have plenty more to go through because today we're going to be going into everybody else. Chase, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling like I got my work cut out for me. This is gonna be a pretty good stream. It's gonna be long, but I think this stream is significantly more problematic, or the things that I've discovered so far have been more problematic. They're not on the same level though, because like Joseph Smith, they kind of elevate him above all the other prophets, right? But like, I mean, the other prophets, Brigham Young was a terrible person, so
right.
So we're gonna go through that, but we're also gonna cover some things that I learned since about Joseph. So I got about a page of notes about things that I didn't know, like that I learned after.
Do you want to start with that? Do you want to start finish where we left off?
Right, I'd rather start with that.
All right. Did you want me to talk about the Masonry stuff first, or did you want to tag that on to the end?
We'll get there.
That? Okay, yeah. That's fine.
So, it leads.
I've got some stuff prepped for that. So
cool.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Let's just dive right in.
Right. So, oh man,
are you missing a light? Do you usually have another light on?
Yeah, no, I don't know why I'm so dark. I think it's because I haven't turned it up. Hang on. I'll turn.
Well, for those wondering, some of the things that we learned about Mr. Joseph Smith since the last time that we were live, and we will get there, but there are some very interesting overlaps between Freemasonry and Mormonism, as well as Freemasonry and Kabbalah. And so there's some interesting connections that we have made that we want to discuss at length. Yes, better.
Yeah, that looks much better.
Yes. And we're going to get into it. It's the esoteric symbols and overlaps. And I mean, it gets deep and it gets creepy. And it's just, it's interesting because today Mormonism flat out denies Freemasonry. I mean, they say you cannot be a Freemason and a Mormon.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because their founding
Joseph
prophet
Smith
was a Freemason, which is we keep bringing this up, that why is it that Mormons today aren't allowed to do the things that Joseph Smith was allowed to do? It's actually the opposite of like Islam. Islam would argue that no, because the prophet did these things, we should get to do these things. But in Mormonism, it's the opposite. It's like, oh, all those things that Joseph Smith did, we need to not do those things. But he's a prophet. He's still a prophet of God.
There are Mormon scholars who believe that polygamy will be reestablished.
Okay.
They just don't know when.
Oh.
I think they think it's going to happen during like the Messianic age, right? Or whatever. But anyways.
Hello. Welcome to the stream.
What up? All right. So, things that I learned since stream number 1 about Joseph Smith. So, we're going to start. Thank you very much for the sub. We're going to start with, remember how last time we were talking about Joseph Smith's treasure hunting, and I mentioned that he engaged in folk rituals. I'm not clipping or anything, am I? Do I still sound good?
Yeah, you're good.
Just making sure, because this is usually the distance I have the mic at, so I don't know why I was clipping so bad last time. Well, these rituals, Andrew, it couldn't have been any worse than what I discovered it to be. I mean, it could have been a little bit worse because it could have been human but they practiced animal sacrifices for treasure hunting.
No, they did not.
Yeah, they did.
What do you mean? What?
This is in Mormon resources. Please feel free to go. You are 5 years old, man. Okay. Yeah. Anyways,
I
so
feel like I shouldn't show that picture.
yeah,
Of that.
probably not.
Anyways, maybe you don't need to be on the stream. This is a slightly
It's a little bit more adult topic.
It's like PG. It's like PG-13.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress. So, yes, they practiced animal sacrifices, and it gets worse. It wasn't like they would sacrifice a chicken or a pig. It was most often dogs.
What was the source?
These are just general Mormon sources. Please, if you go on Google, let's all go look.
Not
together.
to not to fact check you.
No. No.
I just I'm very like shocked. This cannot. What would they do the sacrifices for? What was it?
Yeah. So hang on.
For what?
Based on accounts, there are claims that Joseph Smith practiced animal sacrifice, specifically killing a dog during treasure hunting expeditions in the 1820s. So, these accounts allege that the sacrifices were intended to appease guardian spirits. So remember, we talked about the guardian spirits last time as well, and how they would move the treasure, right? That's true. Dude, it's so true. All right,
weird.
I can't. There's a reason why they're man's best friend, right? There's just a very special connection that I have with just dogs, and I don't know what it is. Can't quite explain it, but man, I love dogs. Demons, man. That's why Muhammad was like, you can't have a dog, or else Jibril's not going to come to you, because demons hate him. Anyways,
true.
Yeah, so he sacrificed a dog and spilled its blood on the ground to appease a native, like some sort of guardian spirit. I don't know if it was Native American. I don't know if it was, if he thought it was a Spanish, right? Second of all, also, if you recall, I said that Spanish gold never made it all the way up to Pennsylvania. Well, I was correct, right? The Spaniards never made it really past Florida. That was about as far north as they went.
They didn't go past Florida.
They didn't really go past Florida, so that was about as far as they got. So I don't know what the heck Joseph thought he was digging for. If he thought it was Spanish gold, then all right. Now, something else that I learned that was during the Joseph Smith sort of era, more polygamy. In most likely March of 1844, Joseph's brother Hiram, at his brother's direction, officiated a marriage between Mormon apostle Erastus Snow and Minerva White. In that same month, in March of 1844, Hiram Smith had this to say. Let's go ahead and share my screen real quick. Why did it all of a sudden just... sorry about that. I don't know why it... Okay, hang on. There we go. All right. Share screen. Times and seasons. Here we go. All right.
Oh, sorry. What?
So this was March 8th, 1944, by Hiram Smith. It says, "To the brethren of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints living on China Creek in Hancock County." Actually, I'm going to zoom in so that way y'all can actually read it and it's not. Here we go. Man, and then it just completely... Okay. I don't know why it just does that. Anyways, here we go. Hancock County, greetings. Whereas Brother Richard Hewitt has called me today to know my views. Sorry, yeah, you're good. Concerning some doctrines that are preached in your place, and states to me that some of your elders say that a man having a certain priesthood may have as many wives as he pleases, and that doctrine is taught here. I say unto you that that man teaches false doctrine, for there is no such doctrine taught here, and any man that is found teaching privately or publicly any such doctrine is culpable and will stand a chance to be brought before the high council and lose his license and membership also. Therefore, he had better beware what he is about. So, oh, okay, you're not 5. What's with the dollar signs? Whatever. Thanks for the sub. Anyways, yeah. So, like I said, Hiram Smith officiates a plural marriage between Erastus Snow and Minerva White. Let's go ahead and let's look up how many wives Erastus Snow had.
I'm gonna guess it was at least 15.
No. It was he wasn't a prophet, so you got to understand they were less.
Is there any teaching that lay people can only have a certain number of wives?
No. But I'm just saying, like he didn't have the authority. It wasn't like Joseph where he could just be like, hey, you have to sleep with me or else you're going to hell. I don't think they had the same power to say that, and I don't think they were nearly as convincing. But Erastus had 4 wives, so he married his first, Artemisia Bayman, and then Minerva White was his second wife, which he married. They say in 1846. Doubt it. I think Google is wrong. I've had this problem before, but yes, indeed. Regardless, we know that before 1844, they were practicing polygamy, and lo and behold, here comes Hiram.
Yeah, I don't really trust. I don't know. Lately, a lot of the Google sources have been super biased. Like,
Yeah, I
if you're
know.
searching up for anything, you're not going to
Especially
find
Mormon.
actual like good critical sources on anything.
Especially for Mormon stuff, I've noticed. I remember one time I searched up something, and then it gave me one date, and then I searched more specifically for that same thing, and it gave me a different date, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways. Here we go. This is probably my favorite, and I don't know why I didn't talk about this. I don't know why I didn't look into this and study this before. But in April of 1844, Joseph Smith got rejected by a lady named Jane Law. Now, Jane Law's husband, William, was a member of what's known as the First Presidency. So, like, the prophet is at the top, and he's known as the president, the prophet and president. And he's got essentially his cabinet around him. And so William was a member of that cabinet. However, after Joseph was rejected by Jane Law, both of them were excommunicated, and they subsequently went on to found the Nauvoo Expositor, which is that newspaper that we read last time. Man, I have a website here. So this is I'll just share it. It's a great website. They don't just talk about polygamy, but they have quite a few things. It's called Mormon Handbook. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bop. A reference to the Church of Jesus Christ. I like this quote. The Lord knows if I had lost a rib for each wife, I should have had none left long ago. That's a good one. That was Brigham Young. Anyways.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy. He had 55. But anyways. Yeah, but it goes through all these things, and it gives a lot of the same quotes that I did. About polygamy. So we see here it quotes Jacob. And actually, this is one thing that's interesting. The inspired version that Joseph Smith translated, apparently, it actually, so it says, working on his revision of the King James Bible, Joseph Smith changes the meaning of verses to emphasize that polygamy is unrighteous. So it says in 2 Samuel 12:13, and David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. What?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. They're gone. I put them in timeout to see if they would do better, but they came back and immediately started messing around again. So sorry. Thanks for the sub. Probably gonna unsub now, but you can't just come around here and just be
a weirdo.
We're doing something. So
what up, Samuel?
Hi, Samuel.
It says in the inspired version, and David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath not put away thy sin, that thou shalt not die. Which I don't know why he left not in there again, but whatever. But he makes sexual sin a pretty big deal. And then we have his first affair with Fanny Alger, and it goes through all of these different quotes. I really like these pictures because they all look like this. They all look like some 1990s video game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My favorite one is where is he at? My favorite is he's funny too. Where's William? This guy. What happened to Austin, bro? Anyways. Yeah. So there's that. A very good resource. Highly recommend. But so here's where we get into Freemasonry. So those were just a couple things I learned after my study on Joseph Smith the first time. A few things I learned. Now we get into Freemasonry. So Joseph Smith's brother or father, Joseph Smith's father. So Joseph is Joseph Smith Jr. So his father is, you guessed it, Joseph Smith Sr. And his brother Hiram were both Freemasons a good while before Joseph ever became one. But their influence and that of many of the early Latter-day Saints most likely pushed Joseph in the direction of Freemasonry. Whenever the Nauvoo Charter got initiated and Joseph started building up the town, he wanted to have a Masonic lodge there. And so a lodge in Columbus, Illinois, recommended them to the Grand Lodge of Illinois, who on October 15th, 1841, issued what's known as a dispensation, which is kind of like a temporary rule breaking, so that because normally you'd have to go through the proper channels, but they essentially just bypassed the rules, and they were like, all right, you're established, and he granted them a charter for a lodge in Nauvoo. In 1842, the new lodge was consecrated. Guys, come on. If you're... Oh, Andrew, you froze.
What? Am I better?
Nope.
Here, keep going with what you're doing.
Okay. I'm just saying, right? Like, if you have to consecrate your, boys club, right? That sounds kind of religious. Anyways. So the new lodge was consecrated and the officers installed by the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Illinois. Also, the whole time I was researching all this stuff, all I could think about was the episode of SpongeBob with the super secret order of the Good Neighbor Lodge. That was all I could think about.
Oh, same.
And the dances and the
give me 1 second. I'm gonna drop for a second, and then I'm gonna refresh my page, and I'll come.
Right. It's just me. That's not super. Actually, I don't know how modern. How do we flip one?
Got it.
There we go. First of all, I don't know that that's modern SpongeBob. Hang on.
No, it's got to be in like the late 2000s. There's a whole episode where SpongeBob, where Squidward joins a super secret fraternal order, and he is in like a pyramid.
That was 05. Oh, season 4. Okay. So season 4. I thought it was like season 2, but it's season 4, which is not exactly the best season. The first 2 seasons are the best, but that's okay. Anyways. But yeah, that's all I could think of. No, it's not. The Super Secret Order of the Good Neighbor Lodge. What's that post say? Man, made me have to open my tab again. Good Neighbors, which feature the Secret Royal Order. Sorry, not the Super Secret Order. The Secret Royal Order of the Good Neighbor Lodge originally aired in 05. It is episode 4B of season 4. So take that. No, Squidward joins a cult is not the same episode. You're welcome. Anyways.
When do you so Joseph Smith's brother and father were Freemasons before he was a Freemason.
Yes.
That's interesting. That connects a lot of things, but
right. So yeah, in 1842 the lodge was consecrated and the officers installed by the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Illinois. I'm being dead serious, dude. Their highest ranking official in the local lodge is called a worshipful master.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
What on God's green earth are we talking about here?
Totally Christian. Totally fine to call
leader,
worshipful master.
We can't be calling people worshipful master. I don't know. I don't know. But we can't be doing that.
Yeah.
That's not cool. So regardless. But oddly enough, their worshipful master was Joseph Smith's brother, Hiram, who was, before that, he was a master mason. So he completed his apprenticeship and his like all that stuff. So he was a master mason, which I don't even really know what that like means necessarily, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Got a lot of catching up to do.
It's really not all that.
I don't know. A lot of SpongeBob still holds up. I was watching.
I like the early seasons so much more.
A couple months back, we watched some and we were laughing like hysterically at some of the stuff. Maybe it just means I haven't grown up. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean I haven't grown up either, but I still have culture, Andrew. Anyways, not just messing. Yeah, so he was the worshipful master. And that same day, Joseph entered into. Thank you, Tommy. Joseph Smith entered into Freemasonry as an apprentice. Now, the day after the lodge was established, I'm not kidding you. The Grand Master of Illinois just straight up made Joseph Smith a master mason. He skipped everything and made him a master. I'm being dead serious. He literally, it's known as being raised on site. So literally like they just see you and they're like, that's a master. Anyways.
Okay.
So he just, And I feel like the reason why they raised him because they were like, man, we've never seen cult technique on this level before. Like, how did you convince this many people? We have yet to have done that ourselves. But
Oh, no, by then, well, maybe not.
yeah,
I mean,
well, what I mean is like Joseph Smith was at that time like 30s, and his religion had been around for like 15 years.
yeah, I guess to
So
that extent, because Freemasonry from 1700s, so 1717 was the beginning of their run, and then
what do you mean? It goes back to Solomon's Temple.
well, historically speaking, 1717 is the beginning of Freemasonry, and Freemasonry's run and like really their highest point of dominance comes in like the 1900s, when I mean people were like getting passed up for promotions at jobs over for people who were Freemasons. Like if you were a Freemason, you got special privileges for being a Freemason.
No,
No,
neither of
we
us
are
are
not.
Mormons.
We are not Mormons. Nope. We're talking about the history though. And all the history we're talking about is from Mormon sources.
Yeah,
So
so
we're not
if you
being
doubt
biased. This
anything,
is
you can look it up. But I
sorry,
digress.
Gypsy.
So after about 6 weeks after his initiation, Joseph Smith introduced the endowment ceremony in the Mormon temples. Now, I bet you might think to yourself, Chase, man, what the heck? I thought that this was Christian. But you'd be wrong. Mormons have lied to you. You see, temple ceremonies are a huge deal in Mormonism. And if you are unfamiliar, these temple ceremonies are almost copy and paste Masonic initiation ceremonies.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you have any compare and contrasts on that? Because I have a list here of some of the similarities, but I don't know if you
go ahead. Go ahead and go into it. I may have some of the things that you talk about. I may mention or may have mentioned, but it is okay. Go ahead and
yeah, it's all good. So both utilize specific handshakes and gestures, which again to me is really funny because that's something that like me and my buddies would do at like summer camp was like handshakes. And here we have this religion, right? Right. Anyways, both have secret passwords or phrases that you have to know. Not like it's not like I have to know a password to get in or anything like that, but like you have to know these phrases. They're significant for their lore,
sort of like if you have a robe when you graduate university.
I guess.
Maybe similar.
I mean, we'll get there. Actually, that's the next thing on the list is both make use of ritual clothing, particularly aprons. Now, these aprons, if you look up Joseph Smith's drawings of what these aprons should look like, it's got the square on it, and it's got like the hang on, let me because I almost put a picture of it in here. Garments.
I have.
Are you a Mormon? Mountain gypsy? It's a fig leaf. Lots of ex-Mormons mock them, which is sad. I'm not mocking that. I'm not really mocking anything, actually. I'm more concerned with this. Let me share my screen real quick. Suspicious connection. What? Okay. You're half Iranian and you're Mormon? Very interesting. All right. So here's the initial temple garment. Right? We can see here the square, and what appears to be a protractor, right? This is an original drawing of what it was supposed to look like. And so it's just, right? We can see we may have a bit of a connection here. Both also utilize allegorical storytelling, which is very significant in this kind of practice, and then both unfold in stages. So both of them, it's like initiation is like a process. So you have Mormonism, their rituals, kind of like, I believe it's like the story of the world and of redemption. And then in what is it in Masonry?
You're talking about like the history?
Well, like the ritual, like the allegory for the rituals and the initiation and stuff.
Hold on.
Yeah, so it's the book of Genesis too. Yeah.
I'm not totally sure about that one. Hold on.
Because I thought it was oh shoot. I thought it was kind of about their spiritual, but I digress. Anyways.
Yeah.
Mormon Masons. You're not allowed to be that, right?
As far as I'm aware, pretty sure Mormonism denies being a Mason.
We talk about that.
Let me hold on.
But yes.
I mean, I'll double check real quick, but
no, you're not allowed to be a Mason and a Mormon at the same time. I mean, they may have become a little bit more lax now.
Huh?
I thought.
I guess I could stand corrected.
Well, which would make sense. Hang on, because I'm like 90% sure Brigham Young.
Right. I mean,
early church leaders were Masons. Tensions over that connected Masonry. Where is the?
Well, the problem is
no, he didn't officially make it unlawful or formally ban, but he was highly suspicious of it. Then what was I reading where I thought it said it was? I think it was like a Masonic website where it was like, yeah, they can't. Anyways, I digress. I thought that you were not allowed to be Mormon and Mason at the same time, but I digress.
Yeah, we were both wrong.
I guess we were both wrong.
We stand corrected.
No. I mean, hey, if we're wrong, we're wrong. I mean, I still think your religion is wrong for many more reasons than
well, the problem ultimately. So
but,
the problem, hold on. The problem ultimately does come down to the fact it was actually a point. It was a point for Mormonism to not be a part of Masonry,
right?
Because the problem is we would affirm that Masonry is anti-Christian,
right?
So that they're not compatible. So I was actually saying it was pro-Mormon to not be a Mason, but now it actually, I mean, it does make sense because there is some significant overlap between Masonic rituals and Mormon temple rituals. And we like having you here, Mountain Gypsy. We're not against you, but we do. We're not gonna.
I will have some questions for you if you stick with us. I do have some questions for you, particularly when it comes to a couple of your later prophets. But yeah. So okay. Yes, we know.
JC,
thank you,
Jay Lacey. We learned we were wrong. Okay, we were wrong earlier in the video. We did say that you cannot be a Mormon and a Mason. We were wrong. You can be a Mormon and a Mason. Makes a lot of sense. There's plenty of overlap between them.
Right. Well, so we'll get to that as well. But now, I will say, Masonry and Mormonism differ a lot when it comes to the meaning of their rituals and of their practices, right? But that's very much to be expected. Masonry isn't overtly a religion. It's more like a secret society. It does have religious undertones, but I think that I think that it's to be expected. Mormonism is overtly a religion, and so its rituals and stuff are obviously going to be much more focused on spiritual aspects, right? Salvation, all that kind of stuff. So I completely admit, 100%, they have much different meanings towards their rituals and stuff. Very interestingly enough, though, oh no, it's not that. Hang on. So Mormons in Nauvoo actually took the whole Freemason thing to a whole new level. They were breaking some Freemason rules. I think some maybe initiation things, and so the Grand Lodge of Illinois, shortly after allowing for them to have a charter, then revoked essentially their charter. They suspended their charter, and eventually, once things were kind of much broader, they kind of had to revoke everything, and they demanded that they cease all Masonic activities. At his death, now this is what you were talking about earlier. At his death, Joseph Smith said, "Oh Lord, my God," before he was shot dead. Many people, including myself, believe that he was actually trying to say, "Oh Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" which is the Masonic distress cry. So if you say those words, right, Masons who hear it are obligated to help you. So that's that. Yes, Joseph Smith was the first presidential candidate to get killed. Murdered. Yeah, I don't know. I think that there was a bit of justified. I still have to think about that. If you watched our previous video on Joseph and the things that the early Mormons were doing in Missouri, I struggle to have a whole lot of sympathy for them when it comes to their semi-political takeover of independence and all that stuff. So now obviously I will admit, should Joseph have been killed? Probably not. No, I don't think he was. I think he was doing wrong things. He was breaking the law, but he should have stood trial. I don't think he should have just been killed like that, for sure.
Can I pull up a little some of the interesting things? Well, hold on. Before I do that, let me go back through over this, because you've already said some stuff that I might want to.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm gonna eat have cookie cake in the shape of pizza.
Well, so before anything else, I just want to say that it's the biggest things that we are concerned about when it comes to Freemasonry ultimately is that Freemasonry teaches an indiscriminate view of God, right? So Freemasonry just believes in this idea that you have to have a higher power. That is, one of the very few dogmas of the Freemasons. And actually, I'll pull up. Let me pull up I just thought about this. I'm going to go on my Kindle so I can pull up a pinned quote from a book called The Masonic Initiate, A Guide to Light. It is by the author's name is, hold on.
So, Mr. Burgundy.
Hello. Oh goodness, what is his name? It's fine. I'll get it at the end.
Well, I feel like you can be an apologist and a philosopher, but we're more into like apologetic stuff. I do like philosophy a lot. I think
We
it's
are
very
on
important.
we are on TikTok. We are trying to. I am really struggling to figure out streaming to TikTok and YouTube. So as soon as we have that figured out, we'll be doing both. So what does that make Christians? They're all different denominations, but all believe in the same Christ. See, that's where you're wrong. We don't, because majority of Christianity would argue Christ is God, that Christ is straight up God in the Trinitarian sense of God. That is the consensus view of the church for, if you
1,000 years.
yeah, I would argue 2,000 years, but I know some would argue at least from Nicaea. Sure, why not?
Oh, no.
1700,
Yeah,
1700 years for the people who want to be like really
Yeah.
hard nosed on it.
You'd
That
be
was the
stupid.
official doctrinal stance of the church. But I would argue that for 2,000 years, the church at large has viewed Christ is God. He is God in the flesh. He is consubstantial with the Father and the Holy Spirit in the Trinitarian sense of God. And so
that's not when the Trinity was made up, bro.
No, Moses was made known of the Trinity. Like, this is, they're just because the terminology hadn't been developed does not mean the idea was not there.
Okay, let's say that the Trinity was first formalized whenever Rome was condemning Christianity. That's fine, but the doctrine of the Trinity itself was always held by Christians at large. It just wasn't formalized up until that time. I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
no, I mean we've done a lot of videos on this. We're like we know the history.
Yeah.
But,
anyways, you were saying?
I lost my train of thought. But so just because there's multiple Christian denominations, and yet we all worship the same God, there's a difference to multiple Christian denominations that hold to a Nicene view of God, of the church, right? We all have like the Nicene Creed, and we agree to the Nicene Creed, right? There's a difference between Christian sects that reject major aspects of the Nicene Creed, as in like the Trinity, right? I struggle to consider, heretical groups that would deny the Trinity to be Christian, because they're denying the truth of the divinity of God. They have made their own version of God that is separate from what the rest of church history has taught, what the rest of the church at large,
most importantly,
what the Bible teaches.
What the Bible teaches, right?
Yeah, this is what.
So you can say, yeah, hey, why is it never mentioned in the Bible? And that's completely fine. I don't think that a doctrine has to be named in the Bible in order for it to be true. For example, like, why doesn't the Bible mention the group of Jews who went across the Mediterranean over to the Americas for you, right? I feel like that's a little interesting as well. So you also believe in extra biblical things. Not extra biblical. You also believe in things that aren't explicitly mentioned in scripture. So
we have a 3-hour video on the Trinity showing where it's at throughout the Old Testament. Again, this is kind of like the
you do not have no. Oh my. Anyway, sorry. I don't mean to be that way, but you do not have archaeological evidence that the Jews came over on a boat. You don't.
Do you have again, not trying to be rude, but do you have non-biased sources?
Linguistics don't count.
Do you have non-biased archaeological sources proving your point? Because here's the thing, there are plenty of Muslims who say that there were Jews that worshipped Ezra, but the only sources that claim that are Islamic sources.
Right. Pottery shards.
What? I'm trying to find. Hold on. I'm trying to find my pins on this book, but for some reason I can't find them but I'm just going to have to find the actual quote that I wanted to use. I know at least I highlighted it in blue. let's see. Hold on. Is this it? Here we go. Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. We do call-in shows occasionally. We like to do call-in shows, but sometimes like today we're just going through information. But we're with a couple other people. Hold on. Let me share my screen real quick. This is the quote that I found very problematic. Let's see. How do I... Can I zoom in? Hold on. I'm so technologically not.
But again, so you can say that that we, you know, that you have pottery shards and that you have archaeological evidence of the Jews coming over here, but it's not mentioned in the Bible. That was your point, that the Trinity is not mentioned in the Bible. So
Getting back to this, I'm just going to read it. Everybody just squint a little bit and you can see it. Masonry's only religious requirement is that you believe in one true, ever-living God and in the immortality of the soul. It does not matter what religion you identify with, only that one does believe in God. I understand that while God may be called by many different names, all these names correspond to the same core concept and identity. That is completely anti-Christian. Completely, like undeniably anti-Christian.
right.
You cannot say that Christians and they're essentially saying Yahweh and Allah are the same God is completely wrong. Because that is a God who is very wishy-washy in how you should refer to him. Because Yahweh was okay with being a father. Allah is not okay with being a father.
But he's got 99 of the names.
Yeah. He's extensively not okay with being called a father. And if you call him a father and you really mean it, you've committed shirk and you are, damned forever. Like that's, what are we talking about? These are not the same. And what if I come around and say, oh yeah, I'm a monotheist and I worship Satan, right? So is Satan and Yahweh, are they the same core concept of God? No, obviously not. And we all would say that. Everyone would say, no, that doesn't make any sense. Exactly. Right. This theology does not make any sense. And that's what this is. This is a theological statement.
I don't know if you can put links in the chat if you're not a mod, unfortunately.
And now, and so now this is what I also found very interesting about Masonry. Evolution is now understood as an ecumenical act of nature. While modern scientists like the idea that evolution is a new notion, ancient civilizations had perhaps an even more profound understanding of evolution. It is similar to Kabbalistic idea that tells us how the universe is composed of one energy or entity that has been separated, split apart, and manifested in countless life forms. So one of the things that we mentioned a lot in the first stream was that a lot of the things that Mormonism was preaching on and that Joseph Smith was putting into Mormonism sounded like Kabbalah. And I was asking, the chat at that time, do we know if Joseph Smith would have had any access to anyone who would have been teaching Kabbalah? But no, it's like he didn't need that. He had Masonry, because Masonry actively acknowledges that they find a lot of their esotericness, a lot of their way, essentially their gnosis from Kabbalah. But a lot of this stuff is all based on this deep intrinsic concept of secret knowledge. Ultimately, at the core, any group that is preaching secret knowledge is anti-Christian. that is the truth. Christianity has always stood in opposition to these groups that were teaching this secret knowledge and these secret orders. Like that is not Christian. So
wait, Mountain Gypsy, don't you guys believe that the Jews migrated before Rome? What do you mean God is preaching secret knowledge? How do you preach secret knowledge? God is making sure everyone knows secret knowledge.
no. Now, this has ended up taking way more of our time on this.
Yeah, it did. We're about an hour in. We haven't gotten into my notes.
But we do plan on doing a specific, like, once we've studied more on Freemasonry, we're going to do an actual, like, at least 1 or 2 streams on Freemasonry. But the point is that what the Freemasons believe and teach. Now, and also the fact that you're saying it's not that deep, I'm sorry, but this language, I understand that while God may be called by many different names, all these names correspond to the same core concept and identity. It's just not true. We believe in different gods. That isn't true. And that is a major statement. Like, if I'm a member of a Masonic lodge as a Christian, and there is someone who believes in the flying spaghetti monster, and it's their one singular deity, and that's their supreme being that they truly believe in, and I'm supposed to call them worshipful master. Also, the all Abrahamic God thing is so nonsense. I've already said it once, and I'll say it again. Why is Allah telling me he's not a father? And if I call him father, I've committed shirk. But Yahweh is a father and totally fine with being called a father. You cannot say that's the same Abrahamic God. This is ecumenical language to try and, bridge the gap between all 3 different faiths. But even rabbinic Judaism has completely gone astray from the original understanding of the Torah. That's why you have things like the Talmud and the Zohar, which are completely nonsensical towards what the original Jews believed the Torah represented and meant. We need to get to Brigham Young.
Yep. Yeah, it's all good. Man, I have quite a few quotes. Dude. You have no idea how similar Islam and Mormonism are. Did you know that Joseph Smith was called the Muhammad of America?
It's the theology. It's not necessarily in the actions of the individuals.
Right.
It's the theology. Actually, some of it is the actions of the individuals.
Hey man, if you're Iranian, you should know. Anyways. All right.
Hold on. Let me
yeah,
I wanted to point out the Mormon temple in Utah.
Well, no, when the Jews fell away, they were not praying to the Lord. So, like, man, I really don't want to talk about this right now. I spent so much time studying this that I just want to, never mind. All right. We will look at the chat, but the chances we're going to engage with it for a little while are slim.
I just wanted to point out, so obviously Masonic symbolism and imagery. You got the moon, the stars, you've got the sun, and a lot of it is just like esoteric, different types of symbolic meanings. And I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what everything means within their symbolism because a lot of it is secretive, and I'm still reading up on all of their beliefs and practices. We have all these different Freemason symbols, And then you've got the temple in you have the temple in Utah, where you have some similar, very similar. You've got the all-seeing eye. You've got the phases of the moon. You've got the pentagram. You have the super secret fun handshake. I find that one very interesting.
The Secret Royal Order of the Good Neighbor Lodge.
Yeah. All of these things, you've got the sun here. So, and what's interesting, it actually makes more sense now that I was trying to fit all the puzzle pieces together, but it makes more sense that Mormons never outlawed Masonry, because the temple project in Utah started about 10 years after Joseph Smith died.
Yes, Mountain Gypsy. But we are just saying that it's very convenient that after Joseph Smith becomes a Mason and a bunch of Mormons become Masons, now you start seeing these esoteric symbols. Also, like, this is not some... No. Yeah.
Well, anyways. I'll wrap up my part. We've gone almost an hour before we've even talked about the point of this. The point of this live stream was to talk about the history of.
So,
wait. He wasn't ever accepted.
Who?
Are you saying like Joseph Smith wasn't accepted as a Freemason? I actually disagree with you on this 100%, because Masonry teaches you to worship the Grand Architect. It does not worship you. You don't.
Yeah, Joseph Smith was too accepted. Joseph Smith was I literally said earlier, he was raised on site as a Master Mason upon his initiation. Literally the day after he was initiated, he became a Master Mason. No. Just a very simple Google search. Yes, Joseph Smith was a Freemason. He was initiated at the Nauvoo Lodge on March 15th, 1842. I don't think he was mad at Masons. I think he drew a lot from it. But anyways, I digress. All right, the rest of the story. Finally, an hour later. All right. So, after Joseph's untimely demise, there was an interesting succession crisis. Hiram was to be Joseph Smith's successor upon his death. However, he also was killed at Carthage alongside his brother Joseph. So where do we go from here? Well, there were several groups that formed. So there was Brigham Young and the 12 apostles. Brigham was the head of the 12 apostles at the time. He said that Joseph Smith frequently met with the apostles, urgently conferring upon them all keys and priesthood ordinance authority. Brigham, he actually addressed the church in 1844, where, according to numerous reports from those present, a remarkable spiritual manifestation occurred as Brigham spoke. Many felt and even saw that he took on the voice and appearance of Joseph Smith himself. Which is very interesting. So, all right, very, very interesting, very, very interesting, but they don't worship Joseph, mind you. They do not worship him. Sidney Rigdon was another of the, not dissenters, but another one of the ones trying to lead the church. He wanted to lead the church in more of an interim capacity until Joseph Smith III was old enough. And then there was James Strang. He claimed he had a letter from Joseph Smith designating him as the successor, but not many people supported him, unfortunately. However, he did take what few followers he had up to Beaver Island, Michigan, where he taught. And moved to Beaver Island, Michigan, where he reigned for 6 years as its king and practiced and taught polygamy openly. So he literally made himself the king of Beaver Island for a couple of years,
All right.
which is very interesting. And yeah, obviously, very, very interesting guy, very weird dude. But nonetheless, I think, yeah. To be fair, though, James has to be. Well, him and this next guy we're gonna talk about here. We'll talk about him next. So Lyman White is another guy who wanted to claim church authority. He claimed to have received orders from Joseph Smith telling him to found a Mormon safe haven in Texas. After being excommunicated by Brigham Young, he moved with his followers to Zodiac, Texas, where he built the first Mormon temple west of the Mississippi, which I think was very interesting. Even though it wasn't like an official LDS temple, it was the first one. So I like these two guys, James and Lyman, mostly because I feel like they, as much as they probably didn't have the, authority to do what they were doing, I would say that they definitely followed more heavily in Joseph's spirit, right? Claiming they had something, claiming that it made them special, claiming that they had the authority to take over the church and all that stuff. Very much like Joseph claiming that he found these tablets, claiming that he had the seer stone, which could give him the translation, claiming all of these different things. But, regardless. Joseph Smith III was, I forget where we're at, I think this is 5. The 5th. Now, he was Joseph's eldest son. He was pressured throughout his life to become the next head of the church, but he refused until about 1860. He refused until about 1860 when he claimed to have received revelation from God that he should be the head of the reorganized LDS church. And he also denied that his father practiced polygamy. So the reason why is because by 1860, the official LDS church had already moved out to Utah and all that stuff. But Joseph Smith III kind of headed the reorganized LDS church that still, hung out. I'm just saying these are different people who.
He already mentioned that Brigham Young also led a group.
These are people who claim to have authority over the LDS church. Obviously, but we're going to get into that. Calm down. But in 1845, lay Mormons and church leaders such as Brigham Young and Parley Pratt were indicted on charges of counterfeiting money.
Nice.
So, James and Lyman, right, going in the spirit of Joseph, claiming they had some sort of secret knowledge of Joseph's. But then now we have Brigham Young following directly in his footsteps by counterfeiting money.
I want to say, why can't people believe in apocryphal texts? I mean, you are free to believe any book that you want to believe is true. Why can't I believe that Harry Potter was a real book, right? It's all real. The problem with the apocryphal texts is with their authorship and their authenticity that we don't know, but also this is part of why church history matters. So if the early church rejected the books, there was a reason. And I've read many of the apocryphal texts of the New Testament and Old Testament, and there's a reason that they're apocryphal. They're not. Like the Gnostic Gospels of Jesus are all absolutely bunk. They're absolutely bunk, and they are just nonsense. They completely paint a picture of a different Jesus. And so ultimately, you are stepping outside of Orthodox Christian teaching. I mean, that is just what you're doing. So if you personally want to do that, I am currently reading the Book of Mormon. Yes. If you personally want to be outside of the Orthodox Christian faith, you get to do that. That's your decision. But you can't tell me that your group that denies Orthodox Christian faith is Christian the way that everybody else is Christian. That's the problem. But I digress. Chase, realign us.
You're all good. You're all good. So they counterfeited money, most prominently fake $50 coins known as Nauvoo bogus. Now, do we know if Brigham and Parley and some of these other church leaders were legitimately involved in it? No, we don't know that for a fact, right? But we do know that there were Mormons in the area who were counterfeiting money. And it was fairly widespread in Nauvoo at that point. Like I said, it's unclear if any leadership was involved.
When I'm saying,
oh yeah, here we go.
Hold on. Stop. When I am saying Orthodox Christian faith, I'm not talking about Eastern Orthodoxy. All Christianity falls under the umbrella of Orthodox teaching of what is Orthodox. It's not about Eastern Orthodoxy. It's about what are the... Okay, then why are you saying you know? So you did that. Are you doing that just to troll me? That you're saying, oh, well, the Orthodox believe this. But if I say, oh, we're not talking about the Eastern Orthodox. Oh, I know. Well, not all the early Christians held to theosis, so you don't know what you're talking about. You're just, bro. You're doing this to derail us. You know what I'm talking about. You know that Mormons do not hold to Christian doctrines that put the vast majority of Christianity into Orthodox understanding, whether it's the Eastern Orthodox, the Catholic, or the Protestants, or evangelicals, or whatever it might be. The vast majority of Christianity holds to these same doctrines. Then they have their outside doctrines that they disagree on. But even the core doctrines that we agree on, Mormonism does not agree with. That puts them outside of orthodoxy. And I mean, okay.
So yeah. Now after this, right? They were counterfeiting money, which is whatever. But the part that Illinois was not really a fan of was that they were practicing polygamy, right? They had pretty strict anti-bigamy laws and stuff. No, we talked about this. Anyways, I'm sorry. Yeah, so they weren't a huge fan of the polygamy and stuff, so they assembled a posse to go arrest Brigham Young. However, I would love for you to come with me on this journey. It's really funny. What Brigham Young decided to do in this situation. So he
go.
I know. We're just gonna continue. So we have here.
God does not me.
A direct source. So this is Brigham Young. Remarks by Brigham Young at Logan on Sunday, July 23rd. So he says here, we'll start here. I do not profess to be much of a joker, but I do think this to be one of the best jokes ever perpetrated. He calls it a joke. By the time we were at work in the Nauvoo temple officiating in the ordinances, the mob had learned that Mormonism was not dead, as they had supposed. We had completed the walls of the temple and the attic story from about halfway up of the first windows. In about 15 months. It went up like magic, and we commenced officiating the ordinances. Then the mob commenced to hunt for other victims. They had already killed the prophets Joseph and Hiram in Carthage, while under the pledge of the state for their safety. And now they wanted Brigham, the president of the 12 apostles, who was acting in the presidency of the church. So yes, this is the part that I wanted to read, I guess. Yeah. So he says, Brigham says, I was in my room in the temple. It was in the southeast corner of the upper story. I learned that a posse was lurking around the temple and that the United States Marshal was waiting for me to come down. Whereupon I knelt down and asked my Father in heaven in the name of Jesus to guide and protect me, that I might live to prove advantageous to the saints. Just as I arose from my knees and sat down in my chair, there came a rap at my door. I said, "Come in," and Brother George D. Grant, who was then engaged driving my carriage and doing chores for me, entered the room. Said he, "Brother Young, do you know that a posse in the United States Marshal are here?" I told him I had heard so. On entering the room, Brother Grant left the door open. Nothing came into my mind what to do until, looking directly across the hall, I saw Brother William Miller leaning against the wall. As I stepped towards the door, I beckoned to him. He came. Said I to him, "Brother William, the marshal is here for me. Will you go and do just as I tell you? If you will, I will serve them a trick." I knew that Brother Miller was an excellent man, perfectly reliable and capable of carrying out my project. Said I, "Here, take my cloak." But it happened to be Brother Herbert C. Kimball's. Our cloaks were alike in color, fashion, and size. I threw it around his shoulders and told him to wear my hat and accompany Brother George D. Grant. He did so. I said to Brother Grant, "George, you step into the carriage and look towards Brother Miller and say to him, as though you were addressing me, 'Are you ready to ride?' You can do this, and they will suppose Brother Miller to be me and proceed accordingly," which they did. So we can keep going. But essentially what happens is that Brigham Young, he just sends out his fellow Mormon to get arrested for him. I don't understand. Like, you're breaking the law, and I get, like, as a supposed right prophet of God, shouldn't you have no fear, right? And like confront the people of this age, but then here you get Brigham Young, and he's like, "God, please, I don't want to go to jail." He's like, "Please, God, please, in the name of Jesus, help me." And then all of a sudden he sees brother Miller, and he's like, "Brother, I need you to go play a prank on the U.S. military."
Because that's the thing that prophets do, Chase. They get in trouble with the law, and then they get people to go to prison for them. They run away from it. That is
yeah, sorry that you have to leave, Mountain Gypsy. We do appreciate you. Everything that I've said is in sources, even your sources. So you should be able to find all this stuff. But again, right? We can't just be claiming, right, that we're from God. And then, right, just, send people out to get arrested for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there may be a bit of an ethical gap there. But however, so Young's indictment, combined with growing tensions in Illinois and rumors that the state may move to prevent the Mormons from leaving Nauvoo, led Brigham Young to begin their exodus in February of 1842. Young and the Mormons purposed to go to Salt Lake Valley in what was then, so it was at that time it was Mexico, because Mexico controlled that area of North America. But by the time they had reached the land in July of 1847, it had come under American control. So they purposed to go to Salt Lake in 42. They made it there in 47, and by that time, the United States had officially taken over that land due to the war that the American-Mexican War. Yeah. So at that time, Young then suggested that LDS members who relocated to Salt Lake be rebaptized, and after 3 years, Young became the official second president of the LDS Church. As the founder of Salt Lake City, Young was appointed the first governor of the then territory of Utah, and the U.S. Superintendent of Indian Affairs. So we appreciate that, Mountain Gypsy, but we are completely content with Orthodox Christianity. Now, as such, as the governor of Utah and the superintendent of Indian Affairs, he was appointed a salary of $2,500 a year, which is equivalent to over 6 figures today, which is pretty wild. So he got paid pretty good by the the United States for his services.
Bag chasing.
Now, what's up? Oh,
he
bag
got,
chasing. Yeah.
he got a bag.
Right. Over the next few years, Brigham Young would command the Mormons, and the territory of Utah would go on to build roads, settlements, railroads, and stuff. However, in 1850, Brigham Young issued an extermination order against uncooperative Timpanogos people because they had supposedly stolen livestock. So essentially, Mormons reported that their livestock had been supposedly stolen by these people. And he essentially was just like, all right, if they're not going to cooperate, you just go ahead and kill them. When it comes to like Native American violence, to me, like there was quite a bit of violence that I feel like was pretty justified on the part of the Americans. There was a lot of things that were going on, a lot of people dying. And so they just kind of wanted to, get it over with. So while I don't necessarily think it was great that this stuff had to happen, it did. And that then paved the way for Mormon expansion throughout the territory, because the Timpanogos people could have just very easily been killed if they didn't cooperate with the Mormon settlers. He also established a university known as the University of Utah and a gold mint. Now, I wanted to ask Mountain Gypsy earlier about this, but I forgot, and then I had to move on. But see, unfortunately, Brigham Young was a supporter of slavery. And not just a supporter of slavery, but a very staunch advocate that it should come to Utah.
Before you jump into this, because this is going to be a big thing. I just wanted to put something up. They're not even here to, but so they made a claim that there is a linguistic link between the Cherokee people and the Hebrews. Okay. So let's just fact check that right now. There is no credible linguistic evidence that the Cherokee language is related to Hebrew. Cherokee is a member of the Iroquoian language family, spoken in parts of southeastern United States and Canada, and has no historical or genetic relationship to any Old World languages. Hebrew, by contrast, is a Semitic language from the Afro-Asiatic family, spoken in the Middle East and related to Aramaic and Arabic. Why the idea persists is that some proponents of the Heartland model of the Book of Mormon have suggested that Cherokee might be connected to Hebrew to support the idea that Native American groups descended from ancient Israelites. This has led to speculation, such as the vocabulary similarities, such as the Cherokee word for man, ishi, resembling the Hebrew ish. But these are rare, superficial, and not representative of systematic linguistic relationships. The Cherokee syllabary, created by Sequoyah in the 1820s, uses symbols for syllables, while Hebrews uses consonantal letters. And some artifacts, like the Bat Creek inscription, have been claimed to resemble Paleo-Hebrew, but scholars debate whether these are genuine ancient Hebrew inscriptions or later imitations. For two languages to be considered related, linguists require systematic, regular correspondences in vocabulary, phonology, and grammar across many words, not just a few coincidental similarities. No such evidence exists between Cherokee and Hebrew. And the bottom line, while there are occasional surface resemblances and historical myths, Cherokee and Hebrew are not linguistically related. Any perceived connections are the result of coincidence, selective word choice, or speculative theories, rather than established linguistic fact. So, we do not have. Oh, sorry, the wrong thing. We do not have this evidence that has been proposed. It is completely. It's a myth.
So here I will share
let's get
my
into.
screen.
Yeah, let's get into Brigham Young and his love of slavery.
It's definitely something. Share screen. Oh, all right. Let's just begin reading here. It says, I have this section in my hand headed An Act in Relation to African Slavery. I have read it over and made a few alterations. I will remark with regard to slavery, inasmuch as we believe in the Bible, inasmuch as we believe in the ordinance of God, in the priesthood and order and decrees of God, we must believe in slavery. This colored race have been subjected to severe curses which they have in their families and their classes and in their various capacities brought upon themselves. And until the curse is removed by him who placed it upon them, they must suffer under its consequences. I am not authorized to remove it. I am a firm believer in slavery. So there you have it. The old view that slavery is justified because they're the descendants of Ham. No, the point is not that because Young liked slavery that Mormons are racist. The point is that this guy is a prophet of Mormonism. And I think he is largely the reason for what came about, that Black people were not allowed to be priests in the Mormon church, because to my knowledge, Joseph Smith didn't really care. He didn't care. I think he was under the impression that, you could be a Black person and still be a priest, but I think there were a couple of supposed Black fellows who were ordained as priests in the Mormon church, but I can't see this. Not only can I not see it in the Bible, but I also think that Mormons nowadays would reject this idea. So like you'd have to be contradicting one of your prophets, in order to say that, well, Black people don't deserve to be slaves, right? There was no curse put upon Black people in the Bible. That didn't happen.
Now we're not arguing that all Mormons are racist because of this.
Of course not.
This isn't what we're trying to point out is that the people that you're heralding as prophets were bad people.
Right. I don't think that they're infallible in Mormon thought. I don't think that they are. I don't think that they're necessarily. I really don't know how you would regard what they say, because I feel like it's kind of like a Catholic thing where they're like, well, he was speaking ex cathedra, but he was wrong, So I feel like I think we're just going through the history at the moment. So I'm not saying that, this is binding upon them, any of those kinds of things, but I'm just saying, you kind of have to go against your prophet in this way. Now, equally as unfortunately for the Mormon Church, the U.S. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Moral Anti-Bigamy Act into law in 1862, which just began the decline of the Mormon Church. So, hang on, I have this to read. Yes, here we go. All right. So if we share this here, share the screen. All right. So after the anti-bigamy law came into act, our old friend Brigham here had this to say. He said, I heard the revelation on polygamy, and I believed it with all my heart, and I know it is from God. I know that he revealed it from heaven. I know that it is true, and understand the bearings of it and why it is. Do you think that we shall ever be admitted as a state into the union without denying the principle of polygamy? If we are not admitted until then, we shall never be admitted. So he's saying that we would rather, as Mormons, we would rather not be a state at all in the United States Union than take away our right to polygamy within our religion. Very, very interesting thing to say. And then here we have another very interesting thing. All right. We have another very interesting passage. It says here, John Wesley and other great ecclesiastical reformers could not attain to the same glory by their own acts while in the flesh that they would have done had the fullness of the holy priesthood been upon the earth in their day, and they had possessed all the glory and power and keys of it, and lived faithful to its requirements all their days. They cannot be crowned as gods, even the sons of God. Will they be saved? They will. In a kingdom, in a good kingdom, in a kingdom full of glory, full of light and joy. But essentially, he's saying that they won't be able to ascend as gods because they did not practice, Mormonism, but more importantly, polygamy.
Why you gotta drag my dude
Wesley.
My dude John Wesley like that?
I love Wesley, and
Come
I
on,
think
man.
Wesley would have been completely abhorred by Mormonism.
Yeah, no, there's nothing about Mormonism that John Wesley would have supported.
Especially not considering that Buddy was like a big women's rights activist, and Mormonism was kind of like, I don't know, marry as many women as you want. Oh yes, I forgot this one. He also said, here we go. This one is particularly appalling to me. So share this one. So it says, this same truth is borne out by the Savior's. All right, here it is. This is the part here. The scripture says that he, the Lord Jesus, came walking in the temple with his train. I do not know who they were unless his wives and children.
Hold on. Did I hear you?
Yes, Utah was a progressive state for women's rights. Kind of.
Okay, wait? Say that one again. Say that. What was the?
The scripture says that he, the Lord, here you find it right here, came walking in the temple with his train. I do not know who they were unless his wives and children. So he's saying that when Jesus came into the temple, he was walking in with his wives and children.
Right.
Now that's not what that's not what this is talking about. This isn't talking about, I want the Latter-day Saints to those are not saints. We have faith in God and we have reason for it. Every character has declared himself to be God except the one we serve has failed. Oh, okay, never mind. Oh, this is something else. Yeah. That's not what this was talking about, but he makes a very interesting point that he believes that Jesus walked into the temple with his wives and children. Who knows?
I do. He did not.
He did not. That's right, Andrew.
He did not. That is incorrect.
Now, however, 1876 sees the removal of Doctrines and Covenants, section 101, which, if you remember last time, that's the section which condemns polygamy, and section 132 is officially canonized, which is the one that we talked about at the end of the stream, where it says that Joseph, had this revelation and then sent his brother to read it to Emma and all that stuff. But it's the one where it says, if you don't think, if you're against me having many wives, then you're going to be damned. So. Our buddy Brigham also introduced a very interesting doctrine known as the Adam God doctrine. I'm sure you've heard of this one, but it states that Adam is our father and our God and the only God with whom we have to do. According to the doctrine, Adam was once a mortal man who became resurrected and exalted from another planet, and then Adam brought Eve, one of his wives, with him to the earth, where they became mortal by eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. After bearing mortal children and establishing the human race, Adam and Eve returned to their heavenly thrones, where Adam acts as the God of this world. So I guess
Here we go.
Is this a good here we go, or
like this is not?
I mean, it's not
This
accepted. This is not accepted by the Mormon Church, apparently, I think.
This is a
Maybe.
teaching of Brigham Young that isn't accepted by the church.
Let me make sure. Well, he's got one that's not, and I know that for a fact.
Then how can you?
Hang on.
How exactly is he a prophet?
Um,
How exactly do you justify him being a prophet? Who? Okay. Who's the authority? Who is the authority that determines what prophets say that's right and wrong in Mormonism?
it is not accepted. Okay. I didn't know that one was not. I knew that one in particular was not, that we're about to get to, which is very interesting and very insane. But yeah. So yes, this is real. That's what Brigham actually believed, and that's one of the things that he taught. Now, he also taught something much more problematic. Well, equally as problematic.
If you actually, hold on. If you trust that Christ and the apostles are the authority, then you should leave Mormonism, because the Bible
I don't think he's a Mormon.
I mean, Ryan, if you're not a Mormon, I apologize, but I think that some of the stuff you were saying, I thought you were Mormon. So,
well, he asked if prophets are infallible in Mormon thought, and clearly,
I thought, though, I think he was saying that like
he was
defending
asking
the prophets,
rhetorical.
or like defending the prophets, like, oh well, are the prophets of, anyways, continue.
Right. So he also taught a doctrine known as blood atonement. It is just as problematic as it sounds, actually, probably even more so than you think. Now, blood atonement only applies to what are known as eternal sins. The eternal sins are apostasy, theft, mixed race marriage, fornication, and adultery, except for sodomy. So you could sodomize someone and it not be an eternal sin. But other forms of adultery are eternal sins. Now, what does blood atonement mean? Well, it means that the sinner should be killed in a way that allows their blood to be shed upon the ground as a sacrificial offering, so they do not become a son of perdition.
Pretty based. Common W. Brigham Young.
I would like to read to you. I would like to read this to you very quickly. Kaboom. No. Kablow. Here we go. So this is a letter. Brigham Young speech. It's not a letter. Sorry. This was a transcription of one of his messages. It said, in the priesthood, I will tell you what it will do. Where the children of God to mingle their seed with the seed of Cain, being slaves, it would not only bring the curse of being deprived of the power of the priesthood upon themselves, making themselves slaves, whatever that's marked out, I don't know, but they entail it upon their children after them, and they cannot get rid of it. If a man in an unguarded moment should commit such a transgression, if he would walk up and say, cut off my head and kill man, woman, and child, it would do a great deal towards atoning for the sin. Would this be to curse them? No, it would be a blessing to them. It would do them good that they might be saved with their bren, whatever that means. Okay, so you are definitely Mormon.
Yeah, if one of the apostles said something like what Brigham Young said, they would have been excommunicated from the apostles. Like the other 11 would have said, you're a heretic, get out. So it's not like, oh, not binding. No, you couldn't believe something like that. Like if you believed that and taught that and were teaching that from a pulpit of a church or in the gathering of a congregation, they would have kicked you out, bro.
Yes, we follow all of Paul's teachings, but here's the problem.
Oh my gosh. They're going to start.
Brigham Young was not just an apostle. He was also a prophet. I'm not saying that you have to accept everything. I pray to God that you never accept blood atonement or the Adam God doctrine. May it never be. Do not kill people for their sins of literally just mixed race marriage. He literally says that it would do a great deal for atoning for this person's sin if you just cut off their head. and that of their wife, whoever they slept with, and children. Does that sound like something that a prophet of God should be teaching?
Yeah, at least there's a consistency in Islam that the prophet never did anything wrong, right?
Right.
Because you almost have to believe that the prophet lived this morally upstanding life. So if you don't believe that, if you're willing to acknowledge that Brigham Young did not, that he was wrong about multiple things, the prophets are they're bringing the revelation of God. How do you trust anything that he says if many of the things he said were lies or false?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm sure that the Mormon church at large, I say this, there was nobody who ever practiced blood atonement that Brigham Young taught. Nobody ever practiced that. So that's
Right.
good. He
That's
only taught
great.
it. The problem is that he still taught it. And
Yeah.
and that,
I don't. Am I going
like,
crazy? How do you not see this as a problem?
yeah,
I'm
like
I'm losing my mind right now.
how can no, prophets are not infallible in our thought. Prophets are in that they're the words that the Lord said to them are infallible, though.
How do you sift through who it's great that the church today says we don't agree with these things that Brigham Young taught. In the moment, if Brigham Young is a prophet, who is declaring to Brigham Young that what he is telling them is wrong? And then
What's a
why would you
presupposition?
still follow him? This is what I don't get. Why would you follow a guy who is actively wrong about the doctrines he's claiming and then yet are still willing to say he's a prophet sent by God? No, if a prophet sent by God told me the things that Brigham Young is saying, I would be left to assume he is not a prophet of God because he's saying things that completely go against the scriptures.
Well, we have thus
That's what a
saith the
prophet
Lord
is.
statements. We have all those kinds of things, and we also have what's written down in their books. While we do not agree that everything in the Bible is correct, so like the Lord quotes people who says things that are wrong, we do believe that everything in the Bible is right and is inspired. So like everything the Bible says happened. Everything that the Bible says somebody said, they said. And so I think that, like Jonah, right? He was a fallible person, but the Lord didn't say, "Hey man, go disobey me and go catch a ship to Tarshish," right? And he didn't say that. He said, "Hey, go to Nineveh," and he did that himself. So that was not infallible, right? Humans are fallible, absolutely, but the Lord is not fallible, and so whenever he speaks in his word, that's infallible. Now, do I think that some of the prophets of the Old and New Testament may have taught things that were wrong? Maybe. I don't know. It's not recorded in the Bible, really, though. I mean, there was that one time. Well, I mean, Moses did kind of command the children of Israel that one time to kill all those people, and I don't think that the Lord commanded that. But
There's also times when Moses actively does something or David has actively done something that is wrong and the Lord condemns it. So when these people are doing things that are wrong and they're not condemned, they're just, we just don't practice that. Okay. No. Jonah did
Jonah did
not give
not
a
give.
false
Yeah.
prophecy.
I see this more and more now. I've heard this more and more and more now. So if you look in the Bible, the Lord prescribes what are known as conditional prophecies, prophecies that if the condition is met, then the prophesied outcome will happen. It says so in Jeremiah, right? If I have prophesied against a nation and it continues in its wickedness, then what I've prophesied will come to pass. If they repent and do no more of the things that they were doing, then I'll stay my hand. Right? Jonah gave it was a prophecy, right? It was a prophecy that, hey, 40 days. It was yet, 40 days Nineveh will be destroyed. and they said, man, you know, we don't want to be destroyed. What we're going to do is we're going to repent in sackcloth and ashes. And they did, and the Lord accepted that, and they weren't destroyed. So it's not a false prophecy that Jonah gave, right? It
Yeah,
was
if they had not repented, they would have been destroyed.
They would have been destroyed, right? Exactly. So
I could see how this could be a problem for a Calvinist.
Yeah.
But even then, I think they would have a better answer than being a false prophecy. You could just say that, like,
Right.
that's just the way God ordained the.
So how come you said
but
Jonah gave a false prophecy, but then agreed with me that it wasn't a false prophecy, it was just a conditional one? What do you mean that isn't what he said? He said, yet 40 days and Nineveh will be overthrown. He said, I think it was like 4 words in Hebrew, 40 days, Nineveh overthrown or something like that. So I'm not saying that he ever said that, hey, you know, you might be destroyed unless you repent. I'm saying he said that they would be destroyed. But Jeremiah gives us this principle of conditional prophecy. So it wasn't a false prophecy. That would have happened. But they didn't.
You're also lacking the complete context of Jonah if you think that what he was doing was speaking in the words of Yahweh in that moment. It's very obvious that Jonah wanted Nineveh to be destroyed. He goes to Nineveh. He says that. He doesn't even mention the Lord's name. So you can call it a prophecy, but you could also say it's not a prophecy because he didn't even invoke the name of the Lord. He just makes a claim.
Why have we got nothing but people who hate Christianity?
Bro, this is literally the fact that David Wood and God Logic are live right now. We all the people who watch our stream are on other streams right now.
Prophets don't always verbatim say in the name of the Lord, right? The Lord Jesus doesn't say, you know, thus saith the Lord.
I get where he's about to take this and say, oh, so why can't Brigham Young do this? These are Brigham Young's teachings. Right. This is what he's teaching. If you are teaching in the name of the Lord.
Right. So
he's getting up on the pulpit and he's telling the people that this is the theology that they should believe in. And then the church comes later and says, no, we don't agree with that or believe in that. Okay, so how is he a valid prophet? What did he do or bring to the church that makes him a valid prophet? If a bunch of the stuff he was teaching was wrong or heretical.
You can appeal, right, to progressive revelation and say, well, it was right at that time, but now it's not right. But like, you know, I have kind of an issue. Like, does the Lord's morality change? Right? You say, well, Chase, what about slavery in the Old Testament? Slavery in the Old Testament was nothing like slavery that we saw in the 60s, right, in the 1800s in America. And it was right. Those people were kidnapped and forced and sold. Whereas in Israel, you are allowed to buy slaves, but they could not have been kidnapped people, and you could not have forced them. All right. It was always mutually agreed upon. It was generally even among the Gentiles. Even among the Gentiles, they were not allowed to buy people who were kidnapped or force them. It says that if a slave were to run away, you have to treat them well. You know,
chat conversations do suck. We do intend on doing probably next week a call-in stream for Mormons where we will talk to Mormons about in some theological debating.
Yeah, we're just right now we're still in our infancy stage of studying this. We're just going through the history of the LDS Church at the moment, but we're going to dive into y'all's theology in the next few videos. But I digress. Here's another blood atonement quote. I tell you.
We're Protestant Christians.
We are Protestants. All right. So it'll start here. It says, shall I tell you the law of God in regard to the African race? If the white man who belongs to the chosen seed mixes his blood with the seed of Cain, the penalty under the law of God is death on the spot. This will always be so.
Sounds like a binding statement, but I understand. Prophets don't always speak in the name of God. So
yeah, I can't
Just
wrap
his
my
personal
mind
opinion.
around this. Right? If no, not reform.
No, we're not Calvinists.
If Isaiah prophesied that the temple ordinances, temple worship would always be so, and the temple got destroyed, and we see all the other prophecies of the temple being destroyed and stuff, it's like, well, maybe Isaiah wasn't a true prophet, but everything that they say came to pass and all that stuff. So, well, obviously, not everything they said came to pass because some of the things were conditional prophecy, right? But how about another quote on blood atonement? Control. No, come on. Yeah, here we go. It says here, I will take the government of the United States and the laws of Missouri and Illinois from the year 1833 to 1845. And if they had been carried out according to the letter and spirit, they would have strung up the murderers and mobocrats who illegally and unrighteously killed, plundered, harassed, and expelled us. I will tell you how much I love those characters. If they had any respect for their own welfare, they would come forth and say whether Joseph Smith was a prophet or not. We shed his blood, and now let us atone for it. And they would be willing to have their heads chopped off, that their blood might run on the ground and the smoke of it rise before the Lord as an incense for their sins. So he's saying that I would love for these people who killed my prophet to come forward and offer themselves up as human sacrifices. This one's even better. I like this one probably. I don't know if I like it the best. But I do like it quite a bit. We'll start here. If you want to know what to do with the thief that you may find stealing, I say kill him on the spot. Immediately.
It's like castle law in Missouri.
Absolutely. Yeah. And never suffer him to commit another iniquity. That is what I expect I shall do. Though never in the days of my life have I hurt a man with the palm of my hand. So I just preach it. And then there are actually quite a few quotes about blood atonement. This one in particular is interesting because it's particularly about apostates. Here we go. All right. It says, I say rather than that apostates should flourish here, I will unsheath my Bowie knife and conquer or die. Now, you nasty apostates, clear out, or judgment will be put to the line and righteousness to plummet, or to the plummet. If you say it is right, raise your hands. All hands go up.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So blood atonement is generally agreed upon by all these people.
Glad the church doesn't still teach it, but it seems like at one point everybody seemed to think it was fine. So whatever.
Is that my dog? Anyways. Now, we could just close all those off now. Now, this is in opposition to what Joseph Smith endorsed. However, Brigham Young instituted a church-wide ban on endowing or sealing black people with priesthood authority and all that, due to the fact that Mormons did not want the federal government in Utah. Oh yeah, this is funny too. So there's where you get your initial black people priest ban. The other stuff he said was bad, but that one's okay. All right. Due to the fact that the Mormons did not want the federal government in Utah and their frequent obstruction of federal judges, President James Buchanan mobilized 2,500 troops along with a newly appointed non-Mormon governor of Utah to go and restore federal order. So James Buchanan was trying to get rid of Brigham Young as the governor, and he sent some troops to do it right. Upon hearing this news, just like his prophet before him, Brigham Young mobilized his militia against the federal troops and instructed them to harass the army. So I don't think they ever killed one another. I don't think there was any actual killing, but he just wanted to slow them down. So what he did was he stole their supplies, burned their forts and wagons, and I'm assuming took their horses and livestock as well. During this time, there was also a massacre. I think it was called the Mountain Meadows Massacre or something like that. Valley Meadow Massacre. But Mormon settlers massacred about 120 men, women, and children from Arkansas seeking to move and settle west. Now, I don't think that this was something condoned by the church. I think whether or not Brigham Young was directly involved is debated, but you know, they just straight up killed 120 settlers from Arkansas. Young eventually caved. Oh, let me take a drink real quick. Young eventually caved to their requests and stepped down as governor of Utah. Though the LDS Church would later adopt abstinence from alcohol as a mandatory commandment in 1921, Brigham Young actually owned part of the Valley Tan Whiskey Company along with several distilleries. So they did not have a problem with alcohol until like 1921, which I think was very interesting. At the time of his death, Young was the wealthiest man in Utah with an estimated personal wealth of $600,000, which is equivalent to just over $18 million today.
Woo!
That's what I'm saying. So he was getting, I mean,
You know what? That Brigham Young, he all right.
Putting in that work. He took that $2,500, United States salary and made something from it.
Listen. How can I sit here and say Brigham Young is a false prophet when God blessed him so much?
When God
gave him so much financial blessing.
Like,
how can I ever say Brigham Young wasn't a true prophet of God?
Absolutely.
Amen.
What did Copeland say? He was like plains.
Yeah.
Plains. Anyways, yeah.
If Brigham Young was alive in this time period, he would have a private jet. 100%. He'd have a private jet.
I'm sure the Mormon Church does.
I mean, the Mormon Church is very rich. So
yes, $293 billion.
They definitely got two of them things.
Right. At least. Mormon Airlines. Could you imagine flying on Mormon Airlines?
You know what? I bet the service staff would be incredibly kind.
I'm sure
I'd feel safe getting from point A to point B.
It'd probably be a pretty pleasant experience. I won't lie. I'm kind of fed up. I
don't like flying in general. I don't typically feel safe getting up in the air, but I bet surrounded by very kind Mormon staff, I probably would feel pretty safe. They're such kind people.
Right.
I don't think their theology is good, but
right.
I don't believe in their prophets. But I can acknowledge they're very nice people.
Right.
I'm sure they're great workers.
All right.
I don't know if they can fly a plane. I don't know, but
right. But so after Brigham Young's death in 1877, John Taylor was named president of the Mormon Church just 3 years later in 1880. John Taylor would go on to defend polygamy despite intense opposition from the federal government. Obviously, well, actually, I think we're getting there, but yeah, actually, here it is. So in 18,
real quick, keep doing your teaching. I will be listening. I have to go to the bathroom real quick. So
sounds good. In 1882, the United States federal government enacted the Edmunds Anti-Polygamy Act, in which polygamy was declared to be a federal felony. It even actually prescribed legal repercussions to those who supported polygamy. Now, of course, right? John Taylor followed in Brigham Young's footsteps, taking 7 wives for himself and having 34 known children. In order to withdraw from the public eye, Taylor moved to his mansion alone with his sister to avoid showing any partiality to a particular family, which I thought to be pretty funny. By 1885, however, he and many other church leaders were forced to live underground to avoid publicity at all, due to the polygamy and all the financial stuff that they kind of engaged in. However, he and many other church leaders, in 1887, the Edmunds-Tucker Act was passed by Congress, which marked the end for polygamy and the LDS Church as they knew it. So this act disincorporated the LDS Church as a legal entity, and also the what's known as the Perpetual Emigration Fund Company, which was being used to essentially import Mormons from all over, not just the United States, but overseas to Utah, financially. And it also required an anti-polygamy oath for prospective voters, jurors, and public officials. It forbade illegitimate children from inheriting, required real marriage licenses, required wives to testify against husbands, and disallowed women's suffrage, and replaced local judges with federal ones. Now I know what you're saying, Chase. How come you think that this is a good thing? It disallowed women's suffrage, right? It made it illegal for women to vote. Problem is, right, the Mormons were doing some bad things, especially the leadership, and breaking the law. And then, but they were doing some good things as well, right? Women's suffrage was good. They were settling, all this kind of stuff. Great, right? I don't have any problem with those things. The problem is, right, it made things more complicated for the federal government to say that they could vote. Oh, what's up, LA Apologetics? Man, we had an interesting first hour of the stream talking to some Mormons. So, one in particular, but yeah, it was a pretty interesting time. Do I agree that women's suffrage should have been taken away? At that time, it may have been justified due to the widespread polygamy and how how it would have affected the state at large. I think it would have made things very difficult, because if they were allowed to vote, then they would have likely voted, for more Mormon leadership and stuff. And the federal government was trying to get rid of all that. So, who knows? But they were progressive in that aspect. The requiring wives to testify against husbands. So normally, wives do not have to testify against husbands in legal cases. However, this required them to, so that they could more accurately get to who was practicing polygamy and stuff. John Taylor would continue to preside over the church for another 2.5 years before ultimately dying in July of 1887. Wilford Woodruff took up the mantle as president of the LDS Church in 1889. In 1889. A couple years later, or a couple years earlier, sorry, while that is interesting. I didn't notice it. Okay. I thought that it was a few years later, but around that same time, the U.S. Marshal Frank Dyer told Woodruff that he would not arrest him and that he could make public appearances in Salt Lake City again. But as more and more, polygamists were being arrested and more and more Mormons were being jailed, Woodruff was desperate to prove to the U.S. that Utah was worthy of statehood. So he began to sanitize the religion, essentially. He asked the local press not to criticize the federal government too much. He asked missionaries to go easier on their subordinate ministers. And he even asked church leaders to stop teaching polygamy, which, obviously hurt quite a bit to a lot of those folks.
Okay.
Later in 1889, federal judges stopped approving naturalized citizenship for Mormon immigrants to the Utah Territory. So they would import essentially a bunch of non-American Mormons, and then they would just give them citizenship in their courts. The federal government quit that, and they seized, at that time in 1889, another $3 million in church assets. In response to growing disdain for Mormons in the federal government, a man named Charles Penrose wrote a manifesto of the LDS Church that denied that the church had any right to overrule any civil court, denied the doctrine of blood atonement, and asserted their right to criticize government officials, which is fine, right? We have no problem with that. The Edmunds-Tucker Act continued to make it very difficult for Mormons to maintain political control of the Utah Territory. And in 1890, the Liberal Party achieved a majority over the Mormons' People Party there in Utah. Finally, in June of 1890, the first presidency, which is Woodruff and his cabinet, essentially, told church leaders that they were no longer allowed to perform polygamous marriage ceremonies in the United States. However, Woodruff was only set on not creating new polygamous relationships and not abolishing old marriages. So the courts continued to rule against returning any church property because they kind of wanted polygamy gone, whereas the Mormon Church was not really, Thank you, Bucky. However, in 1893, when Democrats took office, so this is when the Republicans and Democrats first kind of took a foothold here in the United States, they restored church property and civil rights to the Mormons. I can almost guarantee you that that's one of the major reasons why they got elected in the first place, because they were like, hey, it's state of Mormons, we should probably appeal to Mormons. And the Republicans are like, man, I don't know if we should, I don't know if we can ethically do that. And the Democrats are like, I don't know, whatever. So they just kind of took it. Wilford Woodruff died in 1898 and was succeeded immediately by a fellow named Lorenzo Snow. He wasted no time in organizing his presidency and began to emphatically preach tithing because of the severe debt the church was in due to legal troubles they had gone through. Obviously, the Mormon Church broke a ton of laws, including the polygamy ones, during their time in Utah. So Lorenzo Snow was like, give me your money so we can pay off our legal fees and debts. Tithing was, up until that point, not an accepted church teaching. So it was not required up until that time that Mormons pay 10% of their yearly income. However, it was officially adopted during Snow's tenure, and it was enforced as a hallmark of church membership. Lorenzo Snow also had this to say. All right. He pronounced this. He said, I say to you, oh my goodness. What? Here we go. I say to you in the name of the Lord God of Israel, if you will pay tithing from now on, the Lord will forgive you for all the past non-payment of tithing, and the blessings of the Almighty will be poured out upon his people. So,
amen.
So, wait a minute. Tithing wasn't even required before. So what do you mean he's going to forgive you for doing something you weren't required to do?
Yes.
Or is he saying, or is this like let's say he made the statement that you should pay tithe, that tithing was obligatory a year ago, and this is a year after. And he's like, well, if you haven't been paying your tithes, if you do it from now on, you're going to be forgiven for all that. So I don't know. Pretty interesting. Anyways. However, Snow's tenure was pretty short. He died just about 2 years later in 1901 and was succeeded by Joseph F. Smith. Here are some fun facts about Joseph F. Smith. He married his cousin, Levira Smith. Levira was ardently opposed to polygamy. When Smith did inevitably take on a second wife in 1866, Levira permanently moved out to live with her mother.
Wait. She wasn't smited?
No, unfortunately, she was not damned immediately and destroyed.
I thought Joseph said she would be.
Yeah.
For rejecting the principle of polygamy.
Yeah, the priestly order.
I guess that's not binding either.
Yeah. In 1867, the year later, she filed for divorce against Joseph F. Smith because he was both verbally and physically abusive. Let's go read. Here it is. So we have here. Share this tab instead. So we'll start here. It says, on his way to city council meeting on 4th of October, Joseph stopped by to retrieve his keys from Levira. The house was quite dark except for one candle, by which he saw her sitting close to a Mr. Harris. Levira said he had been reading to her, to which Joseph retorted, if that were so, it was from a book with raised letters, and he had read by hand. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I guess he's saying he was feeling her up. Anyways, Joseph flew into a rage, according to Levira. He called her a darn whore, a little stained illegitimate whore, and a liar. And if he ever caught a man in my room again, there would be bloodshed if he had to swing for it. He threw my chair back against the stove and opened the front door so that passers-by could hear, and said, Madam, if you want a divorce, I'll give you one. When I said, very well, I'll take it this evening. So he left the house.
Very prophet-like.
Right, of course. But he wasn't a prophet at this time. He was still, I think. Yeah, no, he wasn't a prophet.
No, my bad.
A while before. I just wanted to read you some fun facts about this dude. Yeah. So though the old Joey Smith made sure to condemn any new polygamous marriages, he was careful to maintain his own, and was even charged and convicted of unlawful cohabitation, in which he paid $300, which was the maximum fine for the offense at the time. His presidential tenure consisted largely of mending relationships with the federal government, and getting the church back on a positive financial footing. He would be the first LDS president to travel outside of North America during his presidency, and became particularly interested in building a temple in Hawaii, where he would come to have a part-time residence. So he liked to winter, in the land of the Melikalikimaka.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
However, he died in 1918 and was succeeded by Heber J. Grant. These guys are much less interesting than Joseph and Brigham. I'm just letting you know. Grant was a massive improvement in the ranks of presidents of the LDS Church. He established a Mormon welfare system, opposed polygamy, despite having practiced it at one time, and sought to provide widespread religious education. He died in 1945 and was succeeded by George Albert Smith. With the end of World War II, George aided in sending supplies to Europe and attempted to revitalize mission work overseas. However, George was still pretty racist. Let's go ahead and read something that he had to say. Here,
I'm glad they, eventually the leadership seemed to slowly begin to calm down over time.
Yeah, things got better. So here we have in a quote from George Albert Smith. Says no special effort has ever been made to proselyte among the Negro race, and social intercourse between the whites and the Negroes should certainly not be encouraged because of leading to intermarriage, which the Lord has forbidden. This move, which yeah, never mind. That's but this is. So yes, he said the Lord has forbidden whites and blacks from marrying, and that they shouldn't even talk to one another because it might encourage marriage. However, he suffered from severe anxiety and depression. Times he was bedridden for days due to anxiety attacks. He died in 1951. I have 1851 in my notes. 1951.
Well, that's not right.
And was succeeded by David McKay. The Mormon Church, the Mormon Church grew rapidly under David McKay, despite his being 77 when he entered office and serving for 19 years. So Buddy was like 96 when he was, when he passed away as church president. But he would go on to see the church nearly triple in size from 1.1 million to 2.8 million adherents worldwide. It was under McKay that the church's stance on blacks was softened. However, they would still be denied real priesthood authority until 8 years after McKay's death. And it was during this time that dark-skinned members of the LDS Church were allowed to be priests so long as it had not been proven that they were of African descent. So they allowed some black people to be priests, but not all of them, because some of them were provably African.
Right.
All right. Yeah. McKay died in 1970 and was succeeded by Joseph Fielding Smith. His presidency was fairly uneventful as far as we're concerned, but it only really lasted for about 3 years. He died in 1972 and was succeeded by Harold B. Lee. Yeah. His Harold's presidency was even shorter, lasting for only about 17 months. He died in 73 and was succeeded by Spencer Kimball. This guy was pretty interesting. He made mission work his number one goal and stated at a conference that every young man should fill a mission. So he emphatically preached that every young man in the Mormon Church should be a missionary. Kimball was also the president who officially changed the LDS policy on black people holding priestly office. So, congratulations. He died in 1985 and was succeeded by Ezra Benson. Seemed like a fairly okay guy. He emphasized the printing and distribution of the Book of Mormon. And in a famous sermon, he drew upon actually mere Christianity, I believe, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Really, like the C.S. Lewis book, Mere Christianity?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In a famous sermon he did, he condemned pride and urged young men to engage in introspection. He died in 94 and was succeeded by Howard Hunter. And from him on, nothing really changed. Like nothing super drastic happens in Mormon history. So I just kind of stopped in my notes there. I figured I had over 13 pages. So
that was an extensive breakdown, and we spent the first half of this video debating with Mormons in the comment section and trying to provide our case that Masonry and Christianity are not compatible. But ultimately,
Good thing you bring that up. I want to find out why I thought that Mormons were not allowed to be Masons, because I'm sure I read that.
well, I was watching a video today talking about the historical position of the Catholic Church and the Freemasons throughout history, and the person in that video straight up said, Mormons don't allow their men to be Freemasons, and so obviously, like, he was wrong as well. So I need to, I trusted his word.
Man,
But
I found a Freemason website. I'm trying to find it again. I'll find it. Was it this one? No.
I'm currently sitting on 4 books on Masonry, so I'm hoping to have a cohesive opinion. I didn't actually hold on. There was a video I wanted to show. Hold on. There's a video I really wanted to show earlier when we were talking about this. Let me pull it up.
How come every time I search for Masonry and Joseph Smith, the first thing that comes up is the LDS website?
This is the proof.
They definitely pay.
Let me go to no. Hold on. Dang it. There we go. Okay. So on the topic of Freemasonry and all this stuff, I wanted to show a video. Chase, do you care if I go ahead and pull it up?
No.
So it's from a Catholic podcast, Pints with Aquinas. It's only 2 minutes long. And it's I believe, ex-Mormon. Let's see. There we go. All right. Hold on.
We don't want to get copyright struck, so we'll have to pause it a couple times.
Yeah.
Kyle says, I've heard from another ex-LDS that there are a ton of explicitly Masonic rituals and imagery involved in the temple. Is this true, or is this conspiracy theory nonsense?
This is absolutely 100% true. Okay,
Wow.
So Joseph Smith, at some point around the time he was in Nauvoo, was initiated into the Freemasonry. And he advanced pretty quickly through the ranks. And he writes...
That's what you said earlier.
Advanced pretty quickly. Understatement of the year.
Yeah.
Was the next day made Master Mason on site.
In one of his journals that he was inducted into the ranks of Freemasonry and became a Master Mason. And so what happens within the Freemasonic Lodge is mirrored really closely to what the LDS Church is doing, not necessarily in the baptism for the dead, but the other part of what takes place in the temple, which is called the endowment.
So the idea of the endowment being something that takes place between the Masonic lodges and the LDS Church. Chase, you also mentioned that. So more of this being confirmation of the things that you were saying, that an ex-Mormon is acknowledging that these things do have significant overlap.
And the endowment is this initiation into the secret origins of the creation of the world and what happened in the garden and what transpired between Adam and Eve and Lucifer and God. And part of this, there are secret tokens and signs that are given, which is exactly what takes place within the Masonic Lodge. So there are handshakes, there are new names and passwords given. And so for the LDS person, these things, I'm just thinking now that maybe I don't want to continue on this vein and offend somebody.
Okay.
Because I mean, this is held as pretty sacred among the LDS people. So
Okay.
True.
in short, and sorry for that to derail, but in short, yes, the connection between Freemasonry and the LDS temple rituals is very, very close. And where it came from was Freemasonry, because Joseph Smith had been initiated into it. And historically, chronologically,
Mhm.
the temple ceremony came post
Wow.
his induction into
Wow.
Freemasonry.
Yeah, so all those things that had changed or had become significant came post his introduction into Freemasonry. So it was not that these things were original ideas of Joseph's, it's that these were things that he adopted from Masonry. And that's really, yeah, went to the Mormon temple in Salt Lake City. Wow, wasn't quite biblical to say the least. And I was an arrogant 16-year-old. Well, you know what? So,
Ignorant.
oh, sorry, ignorant. Did I say arrogant?
Mhm.
My bad. Yes, ignorant. No. One of the things I think is very interesting about Freemasonry and the fact that Joseph Smith had this ideology of the temple as well is that in Masonry, one of their big things is about the Temple of Solomon, rebuilding the Temple of Solomon, and that they had this this vision that every Freemason's goal is the rebuilding of Solomon's temple. They try to spiritualize this to say that it's about your interior Solomon temple. But the fact is that they have this ideology that Solomon's temple was built by the Freemasons of the past because they don't believe it started in 1717, and that it was the height of human achievement was Solomon's temple. And something that I think is very interesting that I don't hear people mention, but I think we're all kind of getting to the same point. The idea of Freemasonry in itself runs itself to the Tower of Babel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Where?
What does that have to do with anything we're talking about? It's like the atheist who came in earlier. It's like, bro, shut up. No one cares. But so the idea of Masonry falls back into what I would argue is the satanic power and feeling of building the Temple of Babel, or the temple,
Tower.
Oh my gosh, Tower of Babel, right? That the idea of building a tower so high to be built into, you're building it to the sky to try and essentially challenge God's authority, right? That it's this mark and this landmark of human achievement, I think is at the core and heart of Freemasonry, is this idea that, we can know God through these naturalistic means, because ultimately Freemasonry is a naturalist religion. It is, and I do call it a religion because I think deism is still technically a religion, and the views of Freemasonry are deistic. And so it is this, if we call the Tower of Babel a sinful manifestation of the people, and yet we don't believe that this concept in Freemasonry, especially when they try to attribute that every major architectural work throughout all of history was made by a Freemason, when that is not true, because the Freemasons didn't exist as a organized body in any sense of the word until the 1700s. That is a retroactive thing they try to throw on the past. It's sort of similar to how Islam tries to claim that everybody was a Muslim, or that the Black Hebrew Israelites claim that every historical figure throughout all of time and space was black.
George Washington?
Undoubtedly black. It's my favorite. You ever seen that video? there's some guy that they keep asking him about different people throughout history, and he goes, black. Undoubtedly black. Unequivocally black. It's so funny. It's so funny. But that's
so sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just find it interesting that, you know, some of these Masonic ideas seem to come about after, I mean, Joseph's already gone, but we see that the elements of Freemasonry live on because Freemasonry was essential in the building of our nation. I can acknowledge that. And so it had its grip everywhere. And so it's not absurd to say that there were Masonic influences in the early Mormon church, and that a lot of the later theology that Joseph brings in seems to be influenced by Masonry.
Chris, you can join us if you want. I was going to say something, though. I was going to say that I was right. From the years 1925 to 1984, the Grand Lodge of Utah officially barred Mormons from joining for 50 years. Yeah, we'll send you the link, buddy. Here, give me a second. So for 50 years, it was not allowed that you be a Mormon.
Dang it!
And
too bad we already said we were wrong, and now we have. No one's going to get to this point when they go back and watch it, so we can't. Can't even be vindicated.
Earlier, we said that you could, that it was, but there was a time in which it was not allowed for a person to be a Freemason and a Mormon at the same time. It was definitely discouraged in Utah for a while. Chris, we will have to tell you about one of our friends who showed up earlier. A nice guy or gal, I don't know, but
I have no idea if they were a guy or girl. I couldn't tell by the picture.
I don't know that was her or him either. So
yeah, we have no idea.
But interesting conversation.
I really need to dive deeper into the Book of Mormon. Even though I don't even know. I don't know if the Book of Mormon does it really outline their theology?
No, but kind of. It's mostly just another testament of Jesus Christ, right? So or not another testament of Jesus Christ, another book of their, history. Supposedly it goes into the Jews going over the Mediterranean to America and all that. Chris, we sent you the link on Discord.
Well, I'm if I really want to get a deep dive into their theology, I need to read Doctrines and Covenants, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably recommended that you read Doctrines and Covenants. But dude, that's gonna take forever. I'm gonna find some really solid Mormon resources and just go ham and find all their heretical doctrines and all that stuff. We can talk about that.
Well, now what? Now what do we talk about?
I don't know. I'm waiting for Chris to get up here. So yeah, our next video is going to be on, or if it's video or live stream, I don't know, but it'll be on Mormon doctrines and teachings. We may have a couple of videos on that. We may divide it into theology versus soteriology and all that. But
yeah, because we've got next week we'll be having Between Beliefs on. We'll be hosting him, and then there's another upcoming channel that wants to work with us, Battle Ready Books, and they actually, come to find out, are an ex-Mormon, and they didn't even know we were doing anything about Mormonism. That just kind of came up. So we may have him on as well for his first video with us to kind of be going through, giving some differences between, the theology and what he's learned and changed and grown. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Shalom, Rukaba. Welcome.
Shalom. Rukaba.
And then we just may end up doing more videos on Mormonism than we anticipated doing.
Yeah.
And then in the process of this, we've also found the Mormonism links to Masonry links to Kabbalah. So now we want to talk about some secret societies, talk about some cults, do some videos on that. Because even though the one problem is, it's interesting because I think Masonry as a whole is way like weaker. It really has lost its impact in America. And so, on one hand, it's like, why do we need to talk about it? But on the other hand, obviously, every time we talk about it, people do come to try and defend it and say, like,
Masons
that
just
bad.
show up.
Yeah, it's like so who knows when we do that. It's funny. I was watching a debate about Freemasonry
Chris,
with
you're frozen. Oh, there we go.
You're good. Jay Dyer did a debate where it was just him versus two Freemasons who were both Freemason Christians. And it was so bad because, like, I don't think the two guys understood that they needed to, like, defend that they could be Freemasons and Christians. So it was super one-sided because Jay was, like, just attacking their positions, and they just kept giving these, like, emotional history arguments about the things that Masonry has achieved and why they became Freemasons. And it's like, hey man, this is a debate. Like, this is not, you're not defending your position. You're just talking about, but one of my favorite parts of the whole thing was one of the things Jay pushed on was like the secret society aspect. And then later in the debate, one of the guys was giving a defense of Masonry, and he starts talking. He's like, well, that's actually a secret. So, like, I won't talk about it on stage. And everybody, like, the people in the audience are like, start laughing. And he's like, oh yeah, you laugh. And then he's like, you can go find it online. And Jay's like, well, if you can find it online, why don't you just say it out loud? He's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I was like, all right, bro.
You might get excommunicated.
Literally, it's what are we talking
might get
about?
Scientology'd.
Literally. Yeah. Oh, it's so funny.
Chris, how familiar are you with Freemasonry?
Only vaguely in some of the story, like the wild stories I've heard. I've seen some of the high level occultic practices on captured on video from like secret cams. So I've seen like literal practices that they do with coffins and some of the human sacrifice stuff that they do. No, they're not actually killing people, but they simulate human sacrifice. And it's pretty creepy. But as far as the general history and all that stuff, no, I haven't gone too deep into the rabbit hole.
See, I couldn't get past the whole worshipful master thing, right? Like, I'm not gonna call you worshipful master. Not happening. I can't do that. That is explicitly anti-Christian.
It is, yeah.
I don't understand how you can supposedly be a believer and be like, yeah, why don't you come talk to my worshipful master? It's like, unless you're talking about Jesus, then I don't want to know.
It's also because they have this ecumenical view of religion, that any religion can be, involved. What if you're a Christian having to refer to a worshipful master who is a Muslim? You actively believe that they worship a different God.
But you don't. Because like you said earlier, I mean, if you're a Freemason, you have to believe that all gods are essentially the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can maybe affirm that personally, but I think as far as Freemasonry goes, you have to. I mean, I thought you had to believe that they were all the same concept of God. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna let, like, I'm sure there are Muslim Freemasons. I'm not going to let you tell me that the God who commanded child marriage is the same as the God who came down and died on a cross, right? Like, not the same Father, not the same. I'm not going to let you tell me that these Mormons who are Freemasons who worship a guy, literally a guy, like a god who was at one time a guy who was on a planet just like ours, who got resurrected and got his own eternal family, and then came down and started the human race, and then went back up to heaven and started being God again. It's not my God.
Oh, it's the Heavenly Father Elohim. That's your
Like-
God.
Like,
It's in the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Right. They have you, Chris, you got a kick out of the guy earlier, or girl, trying to convince us that ancient Cherokee writings were Semitic, and that there were. I know you laugh. Sorry,
No,
but you have to
that's
understand,
understand, Chris.
Yeah, she said we have linguistic
Where's it at?
evidences to
Where's it at?
support that
Oh, man.
that Cherokee and Hebrew language is connected.
Good luck. Where's
Which
where's
we
that? Oh yeah,
provided a refutation of that after
Aren't
they
Cherokees like in the
left.
middle of the country?
yes. But sorry, not just that. But she said earlier that they found. Hang on, where's it at?
Oh no, they're towards the East Coast. I thought they were like Arkansas area, but still.
Brigham Young, where's that? She claimed that there was Roman money found on the East Coast of America. Like just found. I'm being dead serious.
Okay,
Where's it
that
at?
still wouldn't work because the Romans didn't exist whenever
When they
temple
moved.
was destroyed. The Romans weren't an empire yet.
Exactly. They weren't. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I was like, how can you say that would be like me saying, yeah, dude, you know, the Jews
Yeah.
definitely like,
I mean,
I don't
even
know.
if you found that wouldn't be evidence for Mormonism because that'd still be false. That wouldn't work with the Mormon ideal.
Segregation, Brigham Young. Where's that?
There's no way she said Cherokee.
Oh yeah, she also claimed he also claimed that Joseph Smith was never accepted as a Freemason. I'm like, who are you?
Yeah, that's just a talking point people use.
Oh, also
Dude,
that
we were getting ganged up on. All right,
that-
it was because with David
there
being
was a
live,
Muslim
Avery
and a
was live.
Mormon.
Nobody was here to back us up, so we were getting jumped by Mormons, and we were having to defend
it was a
ourselves.
Mormon and a Muslim. She
I was,
claimed that
I was hanging out with my mom because she's here.
she claimed
Oh,
that the Freemasonic symbols are all over Catholic churches.
I mean, there are some that have them, yeah.
But what I'm saying
Well,
is
and
that it's
now-
not a church-wide thing that happens, right?
So what's
Right.
interesting
These are
about
not-
that, though,
cathedrals.
what's interesting about that though is
Uh,
the history of how much of Masonic symbolism is just straight up stolen from Christianity. So
Right.
they just steal stuff, like the
They
fact
do.
that they
Like
claim that they
Muslims.
come from the Knights
Oh,
Templar. The Knights Templar are actively
Not Masons.
actively in order of the Catholic Church during the Crusades, and then the Masons come along and say, "Oh yeah, we're descended from the Knights Templar." No,
Yeah, the
they're
Knights
not.
Templar got blamed for literally everything, but they're just pretty based, chill dudes who were like helping the poor. And they basically created charity, like charities, where you would give money to a group so that they could then hand out the money
Distribute
to
it.
those who need it. Yeah, they essentially invented that in order to avoid Muslims robbing people on caravan trails. So you would take a token. They'd give you like this token from the Crusaders. You would go to where you need to go to within that region, and then you would give it back to the Knights Templar. The Templar would give you money at that place. So it was basically like a deposit system. I will deposit all my gold here. They will give me an IOU that has the crest of the Knights Templar on it that would go to the next place, and they would get their money back. So they actually like then they also use the extra money if anyone were to die in the process, or if anyone were to forget to claim their money. If it was left there for a period of time, they would then use that money to the poor. So if there's any wealthy individuals that died that from like being robbed or old age or whatever, and the money is still with the Templars, they would just give it to the poor. So they literally invented charity, like redistribution of wealth, and also security tokens. So,
Chris, you would also get a kick out of this. I'm quoting
Base
from
people.
Mountain Gypsy, who said, and I quote, "Comparing Islam to Mormonism is super far."
What?
Like comparing Mormonism to Islam is super far-fetched.
No. Like they're the same dudes. Like there's like reincarnation doesn't exist, but he reincarnated. As Joseph Smith.
If it did.
Yeah. No, I don't think it doesn't exist, but he did. Yeah.
Right. Where's the part? I really need to find the part where she or he
He's
said
literally called the
Roman
White
money.
Muhammad.
I know. I
Just-
told her that. I
just
was like,
mentioned that.
you know, he was called the American Muhammad.
Right.
Oh yes. Oh, and the Roman coins found on the east coast of U.S. Let's go ahead and just look that up real quick.
Roman coins.
Let's look. While several Roman era coins have been reported found on the U.S. East Coast and inland, notably in Massachusetts and the Ohio River Valley, mainstream archaeologists generally consider these to be modern losses by collectors or
As they
hoaxes
would be, yeah.
rather than evidence of ancient Roman contact.
Correct, yeah.
Like,
if it was
I don't
Nordic,
know.
that would make more sense. But even then, like you're not going to get Romans. No, we was Romans is not applying.
But like, yeah, exactly. When the Jews supposedly sailed over on the we'll call it the Shlomo flower over here to the United States, sorry, Chris, there was no Romans at that time. It was supposedly like 400 to 500 BC whenever they came over here.
Yeah,
There was no Romans. Matter of fact, when
wouldn't the Jews of Mormonism come over in like 600 BC or 500 BC? Like well before the time of they were before the Greeks really took power.
It started at 600 BC. So
Right.
that's the beginning of the Mormon narrative.
Right. And that's before the Greek Empire and before the Roman Empire.
I was gonna say that's before the Greeks too. According 589 BC.
You are so close to the number right now.
Prophet Lehi. I'm sorry. Well, it's the yeah. 589 BC. The primary group led by the prophet Lehi arrived in the Americas in approximately 589 BC. So you mean like way before Rome? So
Yeah,
it wouldn't have even made
before
any
Alexander.
sense.
Even if
Yeah.
Roman coinage was found, well, I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't do. You can't link that to the. Bro,
You
it was
can't
so
link
bad.
that. You can't link
was
it
so
to the
bad.
Shlomo flower. Come on. Hey, it's the Jewish Mayflower, right?
I think we need to do like maybe in like a couple weeks, when we get to like a concluding point of our study of Mormonism, we need to do a video debunking their like archaeological claims specifically.
That'd be fun.
Do you know?
What's
Did
his
you
face
know
has
that?
one already?
So apparently, I just heard this. I didn't actually. I
Expedition
haven't
Bible?
confirmed it, but apparently, the reason why a lot of people believed in non-native origins of some artifacts and stuff is because they literally didn't think that the Native Americans were smart enough to do that.
Ah,
Like they were so racist that they were like, okay, well, clearly these complete savages weren't able to, perform such great works of art. So it's got to be like,
it's gotta be the Hebrews.
I guess old Joseph Smith was like, it's the Jews.
It had to be those meddling Jews.
Uh,
It's like Scooby Doo.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, the Native Americans, the Native Indians, or American Indians is what they actually prefer to be called. Native Americans, they get offended at. Anyway, American Indians, they did not have much technology whenever we came over. That doesn't mean that they're stupid. It just means that they didn't develop technology because they didn't have the infrastructure to do it, because they didn't have big beasts to be able to farm or create technology or like windmill design, all that stuff. Like, they didn't have the wheel because they had no use for the wheel. They didn't have animals that could pull it. They had bison, but you're not going to tame a bison. Bison are basically the zebras of the cattle world. Like, you're not going to tame one. It's just going to try to kill you the whole time. So what do? You don't have horses. You don't have cattle. You don't really have donkeys. You don't have camels. Like, you don't have any animal. You don't have any beast of burden to do work. All the work you do is by hand, and it's mostly scavenging and foraging. What do you do?
There
That's crazy to think about.
Would
that
you like
horses weren't
to-
native to America?
Would you
Yeah,
like to
They brought them
see
over.
the one piece of evidence that they like to cite?
The One Piece, is it a poneglyph? Did they find a road?
Piece.
Did they find a road poneglyph
One
of the American Indians that proves it is the proof that they were
This is
descended
it.
from the? It is a road poneglyph. I was right.
It
Oh
is.
my god! We need to mark it.
Yeah.
We need to. Anyways,
Yeah, this is the
Wait.
one. Now, Andrew
that is Hebrew.
and Chris. Well, right. It's because it's fake. Right?
Okay.
Okay. That's because it's absolutely fake.
Okay.
Additional digging uncovers source of Bat Creek hoax. Let's
Hoax. Okay. I mean, that is Hebrew, to be fair, though. It's
appear
Phoenician
dispatch
script.
is no longer available, so I am republishing it here. At least a few Hebrew sailors, whatever. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Chris. Here's the thing. I haven't actually read much into this Bat Creek inscription thing here, so. But from my understanding, it is a hoax.
so you're just assuming it's a hoax. You ain't read nothing. You just assume.
Well, all right, Andrew. What would you assume if some guy come up to you and he was like, "Hey, man, I found this rock that suspiciously supports my view of ancient history that nothing else supports." Like,
I would assume they're a prophet sent by God. I would assume that they've delivered a new revelation and that I should drop everything I believe and follow them.
I can
I-
even grant that the Jews came over here. That does not make them.
I
that does
don't
not make
actually
them
think
right.
I don't think you can grant that because
I can't.
don't know how you could possibly have made. There's almost no feasible way they could have done it.
All right, following article.
Is this supposed to say El Gabor?
No, it says holiness to the Lord, apparently.
Oh, yeah, it's El. Holiness. Kadesh? It's not Kadesh. Interesting. Okay.
Found during excavations of a small mound in 1889 near Knoxville, Tennessee. Initially, the inscription was thought to be Cherokee. Invented by Sequoia around 1821. This interpretation may have obtained a radiocarbon date of 8427. And in Cherokee, but in a form of Hebrew. Oh, wait. Archaeologists with the University of Arkansas announced that the current issue of American Antiquity that they have found conclusive proof that the Bat Creek stone was a forgery, and they identified the source of the fraud. The text of the inscription appears as an illustration in the General History Cyclopedia, not Encyclopedia, Cyclopedia, and Dictionary of Freemasonry, published in 1870. John Emmert, the excavator of Bat Creek Mound, was something of a ne'er-do-well who had once been fired from the Smithsonian for drinking problems. He or an accomplice must have copied the inscription from the Masonic Cyclopedia onto the slab of stone, which they then pretended to discover in their excavation. Emmert might have been trying to impress his boss with a marvelous discovery, or he might have been trying to get revenge for being fired. The Back Creek stone was accepted as authentic and appeared in the Smithsonian's final report on the mounds. Ironically, this report finally established that the mound builders were Native Americans, not some lost tribe from the old world. Richard Lewonta. Okay. We do not know how often scientific fraud occurs, nor can we ever know. But the historical detective work of the main Fort Quas has exposed one famous hoax. All right. You have to assume that this is fake. It can't be. It literally cannot be that we have no other evidence of Jews in America. And then all of a sudden you find this stone with like seemingly perfectly engraved Hebrew on it in a way that is still legible in modern times in a mound, in an Indian mound, not in a Jewish mound. Why did they preserve it? How come it's so old? Why didn't they continue to use this writing system? Like, these are questions we should be asking.
It does have a weird Vav, though. It's not actually like proper Phoenician.
Yeah, it's because it's ancient. Because it's from ancient Jews.
No, I know. I'm more familiar with Proto-Sinaitic. That's not Pro-Sinaitic. That's Phoenician.
Shh. You're Phoenician. What?
Chase, I
What?
think you just can't handle, Chase, that we've been debunked and that we need to become
No, I'm
Mormons.
being dead serious. Like, it's
We
like
have
we
our
read.
hearts burning with
It's
our-
like we read earlier. In order
Yes.
to conclude that there's been actual linguistic, like, influence between languages, you have to be able to point out words that are similar or even the same and structure that's similar. I mean, we haven't found any of that stuff. You know how rich I would be if I went and studied and got my like historian degree and then all of a sudden just came out in support of the LDS narrative of Jews in America, but stayed non-Mormon. They would be like Muslims. I'd be like their Bart Ehrman. Be like, this is fantastic. A non-Mormon thinks that Jews were in America. We got to promote.
I mean, they did the same thing with what's his face, the Dan McClendon.
Or McClellan.
McCullen.
Oh,
yeah.
Dan McClellan.
Well,
Yeah.
Dan McClellan does claim
Atheist
to
student.
still be a Mormon.
Right, but he's just a grifter.
I would agree. I mean,
Sorry.
YouTube viewer guy. We are
We're like 3
almost
hours
3
in.
hours into this. So, and I'm just gonna be so real with you. If you want to skip like to the 1 hour mark, because that first hour we are pretty much just debating with Mormons in the comments and
We did
talking
talk about
Joseph
some
Smith being a
things about
Freemason.
Joseph Smith. Oh, by the way, Chris,
Hmm.
the rituals that Joseph Smith, the folk rituals that he would use to find treasure hunting, included, you guessed it, animal sacrifice.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. He would literally spill the blood of animals on the ground to appease guardian spirits.
Oh, Chase. Also,
As one does.
As one does.
Did you ever go look at some of the comments? We got some pretty long comments in our first video.
The
And
problem
they were not happy with our representation of Joseph Smith. But one, they said, "How dare you not acknowledge
hold up. I
the
wanna
seer
respond to
stone?" Okay,
Hold
how
up.
dare you not acknowledge the seer stone when
and not acknowledge it.
when
as
Joseph in the Bible used a cup to see the future? Okay,
Which
Did you
is
not? Do you not
true.
know the proof that Joseph?
Wait.
in the Bible-
Is he confusing the cupbearer?
No, he's whenever he gives Benjamin the silver cup, he says that he uses it for his divination. Now he's lying, but they assume that actually he was legitimately using the silver cup for divination.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
which would still not be a seer stone.
Right, which is like Genesis 43 or 44. Yeah.
It would that's a cup. But
Right.
so it doesn't provide any justification to why we should believe that you could use a anyways, whatever. Hold
If
on.
anything, it'd just be for drinking alcohol or drinking water, then getting the vision. It wouldn't be for
Can you
like
provide
looking
a
into
list
it.
of sources. Oh yeah. Okay. First of all, so Andrew, you told me about that comment where he said, "Can you provide me a list of sources?" I mean, I feel like I did a fairly satisfactory job of providing sources in that video. I don't know. Maybe that was just me.
Do you guys see the thumbnail from the Ruslan video?
Stoned and gay. Yeah.
Dude, it is interesting because Buddy. I said at the beginning, like, Buddy looked under some sort of influence.
Oh, in the video he did with Libiano.
Well, in the video, even with God Logic, he
was drunk.
did.
He was drunk. Yeah. And apparently he smokes. I mean, his tongue is bright yellow, so he has hair on his tongue. You usually get that just from smoking.
Dude, what is that super cool video about the history of Mormonism? Anyways,
oh, nice.
Because
Emma from chemical analysis. Oh, okay. Here we go. Sorry, I have to move everything over here. Here we go. Emma did know about the different sealings in marriages. No, she did not. She gave consent to everyone. No, she did not. But sometimes she revoked that consent, and Joseph complied. No, he did not.
No. He would do it in secret.
Yeah, this is. Don't get me started on the double standards. You don't believe that Joseph's seer stones worked, but you do believe that Joseph of Egypt used a divining cup.
First of all, Joseph was not of Egypt. Joseph was of Israel. Second of all, a divining. I need to actually see this.
It's Genesis 43 to 44, I believe. I went over it last night.
Genesis.
It's 43. The second time the brothers go out, and he's trying to get Benjamin to stay back because he's trying to rescue Benjamin from his brothers because he thinks his brothers are still going to try to murder him. So then, in that process, he puts in that cup to give justification for Benjamin staying back and everyone else going free.
Yeah, because he said they're going to accuse him of stealing it.
Right. That's literally what happens.
That's not divination.
His warrior over. But he says that he uses the cup for divination. Why would you think you could do this whenever I'm able to do divination?
Okay, wait. Where does it
Joseph
say divination at?
Is lying.
Joseph gave their donkeys feed.
Yeah, he's mentioning something that would be common in Egyptian practice.
Well, specifically for the Magi, that's what his position was.
Right. So obviously that's but that is him lying.
Practices divination. Okay. When they had gone out of the city and they were not yet far off, Joseph said to his steward, "Get up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and with which he indeed practices divination? You have done evil in so doing.'"
So he drinks it to do divination. He doesn't look into it. He drinks it. But again, he's not telling the truth here. He's deliberately trying to get them in a trap to save his brother. He is actively being deceptive in this process. He can't use this for divination because he explicitly says elsewhere in the passages that he gets his interpretation directly from Yahweh, and only through Yahweh is there truth and revealing of secrets. So he's not doing divination.
Oh, Nicholas Gouge.
I literally did a 6-hour stream yesterday on this topic of Joseph.
All right,
going through the whole story, exegeting it.
This one makes me laugh because it's a really buff guy posing in a Speedo,
which is okay.
okay. And I had some things that I wanted to say. I didn't say them because I am a child of God, and I'm not going to say the things I wanted to say.
After enduring to the end of this video and trying to follow the second great commandment, I must say, as one who has also studied the same history, I've come to a very different conclusion. Joseph Smith was an amazing man and a true prophet of God.
No, it wasn't.
Man,
either
very, very, very misled. These guys have twisted history to present him as something ugly. So you agree that what we presented to you was ugly and horrifying?
That's the historical Joseph.
If you agree that what we said made Joseph Smith out to be ugly and horrifying, then you've conceded. Because that's what he did.
You have to wonder, why in the world did an angry mob actively try to kill him? If he was just a beautiful,
The
nice
bank-
man that everyone loves, why would there be literally an angry mob that forms from his behavior to try and kill him?
Okay, here's
Well, Chase, you just don't understand that the reason they had to print their own money was because nobody was giving them money.
Yeah,
Nobody was paying them, so they couldn't buy or sell, so they had to make their own money.
the problem becomes okay, right. So first of all, the bank. The reason they did that is because the church was in financial trouble and they wanted to print money to pay everyone back to get out of debt. That's why they did it. Not because they wanted to make the economy flourish. Like that's I mean, that's not how it happened. Second, the printing press. No matter why he burned the printing press down, that's still a violation of the First Amendment. It wouldn't have mattered what they said in there, unless they were like inciting violence. Then you can't just do that, and they couldn't have done that on their own authority either. What, pray tell, could have been the plenty of other reasons for polygamy?
You don't, Chase. You just don't get it. The plenty of other reasons for polygamy. It's like how it is in Islam when they try to argue that it's protecting women, really. So like if there's just not enough high value men around, you got to have that one high value man take multiple wives, and then he financially supports them all and protects them all and loves them all, and then you now have
Well, no, not that
perfect
last
harmony. A perfect, Chris. You just don't get it. All right, you got you have a perfect harmony, and we are just so rude because Joseph didn't even want him. He didn't even want him. He
That's my favorite.
begrudgingly he
He was forced
begrudgingly
to have them.
accepted.
Yeah,
That's-
God
he
forced him to have them.
That's my
Wow.
favorite argument is when they say, well, you don't understand. He was forced. God made him do that. It's like, really? Man, people will believe anything, bro.
Yeah, this is the
Oh,
crazy
shoot.
one. This one is the actual, like, this man wrote his dissertation in our comment section. So
All right, let's
I'll lock in real quick.
Yeah. All right.
You can be Christian and not tell nasty stories about other religions.
No,
When converts-
stop. Do you think if you think the stories are nasty, then you admit that your history's nasty?
Mhm.
Anyways, continue. I'm sorry.
Win converts by love. Islam created a more prosperous civilization than most religions, and it sure beats atheism, which tends to destroy nations. So be grateful for that. We should be grateful for the Islamic civilization, guys. We should be grateful for
man.
Islam. If you think all Muslims are going to spend eternity in hell, then your God is not worth worshiping. So by this first opening paragraph, technically it's not a paragraph, but by this first opening,
That's a paragraph. It's 3 or more
you are,
sentences.
yeah. Well, thank you. Okay, we're good. You're not in Christianity. I'm sorry. That is it. Like,
Well,
I don't
he's
need to hear.
not.
I don't need to hear literally anything else. If your theology teaches that you can be saved outside of Jesus Christ, you're not a Christian. Because even Mormons would try and argue that they have some understanding of the atonement. That's great. You know who doesn't have an understanding of the atonement? Islam. Islam has no theology of an atonement. They have Isa, but that is not Jesus. So we are absolutely justified in believing that Muslims are going to spend eternity separated from God without Jesus. And that's why we do ministry to Muslims, is because we don't want that. We want to see them come into the fold of Christianity and be saved. So this is like, if you think, what's the point in, I guess they don't evangelize. Why do they do mission? What's the point in making anybody Mormon if you can be saved outside of the Mormon church?
Well, there are plenty of Mormons who believe that you can't, and there are plenty of Mormons who believe that you can. Here's the problem, though. First of all, comparing Islam to atheism is not a great comparison. Comparing, right? Also, you saying you saying that, well, because you believe that Muslims are going to spend eternity in hell, your God's not worth worshiping. What is this? A my dad's bigger than your dad type deal? Like, we're talking about the truth here. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah. Without Christ, you
can believe in annihilationism, you can believe in purgatory and all that stuff. I don't think those are supported biblically, but you could. Here's the problem. The point is they're not going to be with the Lord because they did not accept his son.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you get to tell the Lord how he should judge his creation, because first and foremost, it's going to be his son who's judging it anyways. But we digress.
So,
continue.
How many wives did Joseph
Are we
sleep
just
with?
gonna get past the Islam creates more prosperous civilizations than most religions?
Yes.
I was good.
That
I
is
didn't
an
wa-
asinine comment, my guy.
It's not. Yeah, it's
That is
bad.
so ahistorical.
Yeah, not true.
And wow. Okay, Eamon. Sorry.
How many wives did Joseph sleep with? What were his stated motivations for the Kirkland Safety Society? And how much money did he make? How many times was he attacked, arrested, and threatened?
All right.
What about
Let's stop. Let's stop here. All right. Let's deal with the first one. How many of his wives did Joseph sleep with?
Well, these are rhetorical.
Hang on.
So he answers himself later.
Here's what I'm saying. I'll answer some of the questions I posed. We'll answer them now for you. We'll just jump the gun right now because I can't really stomach this at the moment. How many wives did Joseph sleep with? You don't know. All you know is how many kids he had. And you have strong evidence that he slept with at least 3 of his other wives. Do you think, Chris, do you go around publicizing every time you have sex?
No, not usually.
No.
No,
I like that's kind of
Occasionally.
a really stupid statement. Chase, how are we supposed to know, Chase, if you're
Jack
married, how are
Reynolds.
we supposed to know that you know? It's just like you can sleep with a woman and not get her pregnant. There are ways to do that.
They had condoms back then.
And
They also
just
had like
the vast majority of the times you have intercourse, if you just do it randomly, you're not going to get pregnant because you only have like 3-day window to get pregnant.
so it's like, all right, there's that. Second of all, what were his stated
Like
motives? for the
ovulation is only
Kirtland-
it's half of a week is ovulation. So unless you're doing it at that moment in time, you're not going to get pregnant.
What were his stated motivations for the Kirtland Safety Society? Doesn't matter because he's a liar, first of all. Secondly, how much money did he make? He actually lost a ton of money because he was an idiot and he broke the law. How many
He
times was
also
he
practiced
attacked?
abortion, so he probably also would have his wives do abortions if they got pregnant.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How many times was he
Muslims are some of
attacked?
the most aborted religions.
Mormons are?
Yeah, Mormons and Muslims.
Interesting. How many times was he attacked, arrested, and threatened? I'm not going to say what I was about to say, but I mean, he was attacked, arrested, and threatened at least as many times as he deserved to be attacked, arrested, and threatened. I'm not going to lie. I mean, do I think he should have been killed before he stood trial? No, right? I think he probably should have still stood trial. However, he was kind of a charlatan who ran away from trial several different times. And that's just not what we see throughout Scripture, right? We have the Lord Jesus. His whole thing was he went to die. We have Paul, right, appealing. Paul was actually so confident in his message of the gospel that instead of running away from getting arrested, he stayed in prison and continued to preach the gospel in prison and to the court systems, appealed to Caesar, and continued to preach the gospel through each level of the court system that he was in. So, yeah, exactly. Like, he wasn't... All right, continue, Andrew.
What about the other witnesses? 3 men who claimed to see an angel. As sure as you see my hand, so sure did I see the angel and the plates. even though all three left the church and attacked it. So he acknowledges all three left the church and attacked it. And Joseph, and yet never denied that witness.
3 men who claimed to see an angel as so should I see
Were
the
they asked?
the church? Even though all 3 left the church and attacked it.
Also, that's not actually a biblical answer for his prophecy, because the Bible explicitly says at the later times the devil will masquerade as an angel of light and do things to deceive people from the truth of Christ, including miracles. So miracles are not evidences of truth anymore, especially when we get closer to the end. There's going to be many, many miracles that the beast and Satan are doing, and all of his demons are doing on this planet, that's going to destroy atheism. I don't think there's going to be any atheists in a couple of years, but it's also going to lead people away from Christianity to other religions, possibly Islam, possibly other cults, or a new cult that forms. Like, it's going to happen. So it's not truth, it's not proof of any cults that comes against Christianity.
Hundreds more who saw angels and miracles and connections with the church, all while being chased and murdered, partly for their abolitionist leanings, partly for polygamy. So he's claiming that because they were abolitionists, that's why people were chased and murdered them. That's why they hated them.
Weren't they
Many
in the
other
North the whole time?
Yeah, they were in the North. Funny story. So Joseph Smith wasn't opposed to black people being in the church, being in the priesthood authority. It was mostly Brigham Young that was opposed to that. He was very racist.
Mark of Cain stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Anyways.
And many other people also saw the gold plates, and especially the 8 witnesses who signed an attestation of that fact.
Didn't some of them recant it later on?
I'm pretty sure all of them except one, right? Hang on.
That's what I thought.
Because I assume I'm like 90% sure.
Right. Well, they said that they spiritually saw it, but they never actually physically saw it.
Legal.
No, I think actually, Jack, I think like atheism is going to be dead in like 5 years. I don't suspect it will last much longer, especially whenever the miracles start. I don't think atheism, because naturalism has been thoroughly rebuked and thoroughly debunked, and everyone is aware that there's a God now. Like if you talk to the youth, they are, even the atheists that are edgy, they're just in open denial about their own emotions and understandings and feelings. But if you actually look at like TikTok with people crashing out, there's so many people who just feel like nihilistic and are like yearning for God. So whenever the miracles start and naturalism is like 1000% disproved because you see fire coming from the sky, either they're going to think it's AI and they're going to keep in their atheism, or atheism will just cease to exist and they'll just go to, deism or some other cult or Christianity. But I do think in the next like few years we will see the end of Islam. Or not Islam. Well, hopefully Islam, but atheism.
All right, here's the thing. None of the 3 witnesses recanted, but none of them stayed in the Mormon church. So what does that tell you? Maybe the golden tablets were real and they were just false.
Yeah, they were still convinced that Mormonism was false. So even if the golden plates were real,
so it's like
they were still convinced Mormonism cannot be true.
I think that the golden plates were real? No. I think that's kind of really convenient how it all happened. Even if there were golden plates, that doesn't make Mormonism true.
Right, like we believe the Quran really existed. We still disagree with.
I even believe that Muhammad totally had a spiritual experience in the cave. I grant that, bro. I think it was a demon.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph Smith could have had actual golden plates, and they could still be harboring lies.
Joseph Smith definitely did not have golden plates. He would have sold them things, like,
or shown them off publicly. Yeah, instead of just being in a hat under a bed.
Along with his
that's
seer
actually
stone.
A pretty good point. With his entire history, the idea that he didn't, if he actually had them, that he didn't promote them. Very,
he would have shown them to everyone.
I'll answer some of the questions I posed. No one has proved genetic relationship to Joseph except those born through Emma.
Amen.
Most of the women he married were sexually unavailable for one of three reasons. They were widowed and pregnant, they married him after his death, or they simply never intended to be alone together, such as Helen Mar Kimball. Part of this has to do with sealings, which are often conflated with marriages, but which occur between parents and children as well as spouses. People seem to think in those early days that God would favor them if they were sealed to Joseph, even if they didn't have much of a relationship with him. Everyone who practiced polygamy believed that God had commanded polygamy, and most were reluctant about it.
Right. So here's the thing. That's even worse for your position because Joseph Smith explicitly states in Doctrines and Covenants section 132 that polygamous marriages are for reproduction. So you
They'd
can't
probably
just
respond with, "Oh, it's only reproduction in the next life, not this life."
fantastic. You can't just say, well, clearly Brigham Young did not think that. Here's the thing.
Right.
Let's say, well, first of all, so widowed and pregnant. I can understand why you wouldn't have sex, during that time. However, you're only pregnant for about 9 months. So,
And even then, it's only uncomfortable for like the last week. Like pregnant women get randy. Can attest to that.
right. Here's another part. You can't just tell me that, they just never intended to be alone together. When Joseph Smith literally says that that's for procreation, how can you say, well, it was for procreation, but they never intended on being alone together or anything like that? What are we talking about? Like parties? I guess they weren't alone. Anyways, I still just like we have Joseph Smith practicing polygamy, and then you have all these the next like 6 Mormon prophets practicing polygamy exactly the same way that Joseph did, except they all had sex with their other wives. So like, I think Joseph probably thought it was okay. I think he just didn't want the financial loss of having more kids because the church was already in a pretty rough financial position. Especially with the whole printing money thing. That was very unfortunate. So yeah, I don't know. Continue.
Speaking of losing money, he lost money in Kirtland since he personally financed the bank because the Saints had been discriminated against by other local banks, and the bank collapsed in the Panic of 1837, in which dozens of American banks collapsed. Joseph was financially ruined. There are also many accounts found in journals of the early saints of him giving his possessions to those who needed them, especially in the early days of Nauvoo.
All right. Here's the thing. Did he lose money in Kirtland? Yes. You can be a bad con man, right? Like you can just fail. So that doesn't mean he's not a con man. That just means he broke the law. Secondly, people were discriminating against Mormons. Okay, all right. Completely, hey, we don't want to have any sort of discrimination. Except maybe when you want to like take over their city and like make it Mormon and like appoint Joseph Smith as the head of like your whole town and like then just like make everything polygamy and like I don't know if we like would you want to be a part of that? Maybe not. Maybe possibly not. And then third, lost money in the Kirtland banks, collapsing, giving his possessions to those who needed them. Absolutely. He had to maintain appearances. And hey, I'm not saying that Joseph maybe didn't believe some of the things that he taught. I never said that. He may have actually believed some of the things he taught. It was wrong. And I think he didn't believe the vast majority of it, or else he would have actually been more forthcoming. Because he escaped from jail on several different occasions. So I don't know, like.
Joseph was tarred and feathered, arrested 30 plus times, mostly on spurious charges, and ultimately murdered. The saints were chased and murdered. They fought back once, pillaging 2 of the towns that sponsored the mobs that had killed dozens of saints, and were besieged by the U.S. military as a result. An extermination order signed by the Missouri governor licensed any Missourian to kill any saint on sight. Every member's life was at risk, while some of those who had renounced the faith went on popular speaking tours, yet the witness which every saint had received that the church is true was so strong that they persisted in the faith and were driven out of the U.S.
All right. Did all of those things happen to Joseph Smith? Yes, they did. And by golly, had he not been a complete con man, then none of that ever would have happened. He could have been a totally normal dude.
Well, Chase, how do you justify what we say about the apostles? This is apostolic martyrdom right here.
Right. Apostolic martyrdom, in which Buddy took up a firearm and tried to jump out a window to save himself. Good one. Yeah, and then tried to cry out to all the Freemasons in the area. I don't, again, like, let's say all of these things that you're saying are completely true. Joseph really believed everything he was teaching. All of these people really had some of these experiences and all this stuff. Again, we're just kind of trying to tell you about the history, right? We're going to get into y'all's theology and how it's not only does it contradict the Bible, but it contradicts, like logic and rules of reason, and how it's just, bad. I think that, as your Mormon brother earlier already admitted, the stories that we told about your prophet were pretty nasty.
Not as bad as Muhammad, but still pretty bad.
I'm gonna burn through the rest of this because there's just so much, and we need to wrap up at some point.
Yeah.
No one is fundamentally created in our religion, including Jesus. He's Yahweh. He atoned for our sins on the cross, meaning that we can and will be saved, including you. Anyone who says otherwise is lying or deceived. We believe that God created our spirits and our bodies, but not our consciousness. In the sense that Christ's body was created by the Father, he is a son of God, and as the scriptures say, and since Lucifer's spirit was created by God, he is also technically a son of God, which is where the exaggerated idea of their brotherhood comes from.
Yay.
Who exactly do you think is getting paid? Most of our clergy is completely unpaid, and even leaked stipends for full-time demanding positions are $120,000. Not exactly exorbitant.
120,000 is pretty good money.
That's some good money, especially considering that those who occupy such positions usually leave much more profitable positions to give all their efforts to the church. Bro, where are you finding these? You find it?
Yeah,
these pastors are making more than 120,000.
Could I take up those positions that they're leaving?
I could be convinced.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by hiding or lying about historical facts, since we publish almost every historical document we find, usually for free on the internet.
I will admit that's true. They do that, and it's very helpful. So we appreciate you guys doing that. We ask that you keep it up.
The priesthood carries the authority.
Yeah.
The priesthood carries the authority which every apostle and prophet had to reveal truths previously unknown. Sounds very wrong. Read the historical documents surrounding Joseph's treasure hunting, specifically regarding Josiah Stoll, who was the only man who briefly employed Joseph in searching for a silver mine that Josiah believed was buried in his property. Josiah resisted the idea. Joseph resisted the idea, ultimately convinced Josiah to stop looking, and Josiah defended Joseph in court.
Hang on. The reason why Joseph convinced him to stop is because he was wrong.
It makes him a great treasure hunter because he told someone, "Nah, you probably don't have a silver mine under your yard." Got it. Josiah defended Joseph in court when Josiah's nephew tried to sue on the grounds that Joseph had tricked Josiah into employing him. Seer stones aren't particularly crazy, especially if you believe in Moses's magic stick. a talking donkey, and Joseph of Egypt's divination cup. Treasure hunting was a Christian tradition. Christians at the time believed that the spirits of the dead were trapped with their treasure.
Who?
Christians of the time, Chase, and that the treasure had to be found and used for charity, or else the spirit would remain trapped. Many of your characterizations of this point are completely made up, presupposing that no visions can occur and that if they can, they are demonic. Is not sound argumentation. The idea that Urim and Thummim were used for casting lots is a guess in biblical scholarship and is contested, although not vigorously because it's not an interesting subject. Oh, how convenient. The fact that he stopped needing the seer stones in the translation process explains his not using them later. He became more adept at receiving revelation. How convenient. Characterizing Joseph as racist is crazy, especially since he was murdered while running for president on an abolitionist platform, and his portrait now hangs in a historically black college as a result, right next to our late president, Russell M. Nelson, for his collaborations with the NCAA. Joseph was born with all the misconceptions about race common to that time period and ended his life as a radical progressive to that point. Moroni being an angel isn't surprising either. After all, Moses appeared to the apostles on the Mount of Transfiguration. We believe that all angels are pre-mortal or post-mortal people.
First of all, just because you're an abolitionist does not mean that you're not racist.
Sure.
There were so many abolitionists who were also racist. They just didn't think that, like, you do realize that there were racists after we won.
Right.
Yeah.
like just because 1960 hadn't come about. We like, I don't know.
Did you guys go over the false prophecy of treasure finding of Salem?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you don't know about that? Doctrines and Covenants 111?
Sorry, go ahead, read it.
Yeah, okay. So, revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet at Salem, Massachusetts, August 1863. At this time, the leaders of the LDS Church were heavily in debt due to their labors in the ministry. And it says, this is verse 1. I, the Lord your God, am not displeased with your coming this journey, notwithstanding your follies. I have much treasure in the city for you, for the benefit of Zion, and many people in the city, whom I will gather out in due time for the benefit of Zion through your instrumentality. Therefore, it is expedient that you should inform acquaintance with men in the city, as you shall be led, and as it shall be given to you. And it shall come to pass in due time that I will give the city into your hands, and you shall have power over it, in as much that they shall not discover your secret parts, and its wealth pertaining to gold and silver shall be yours. Concern not yourselves about your debts, for I will give you power to pay them. But so they were, this guy, I think his name was like Burgess. He basically said, hey, yo, Joseph, I got a bunch of money here buried in a house in Salem. And then he came up with this revelation of Doctrines and Covenants, goes to the city, doesn't find it, gets kicked out. So not only does he not gain power over it, he never finds the money, and there's still a massive debt. So this is one of the verified false prophecies of Joseph Smith inside of their books to this day. To this day. Yeah.
What correlation does Doctrines and Covenants have? Put it in Islam terms to me.
I mean, there's not really anything in Islam like it. It's just a statement. It's statements of their. But it's not like hadith because it wasn't made up. Like,
right.
It's
he
like, actually said these things.
Right. It's like if the Quran. It's like if the hadith was actually true.
So but he actually said these things, and he actually supposedly received revelation on these things.
Right.
So now they can still be abrogated. Like Doctrines and Covenants 101.
Is Doctrines and Covenants like binding? You know, is it
yeah.
Is it essentially
the prophecy he gave is like
it was a conditional prophecy, Chris.
No. No.
If I took a Book of Mormon and I took the Doctrines and Covenants and like mashed them together, am I getting like?
Yeah, it's different.
They all go together. Like
no, it's different. Well, so the Book of Mormon is history.
Yeah, it's a history book
Right. Well,
about
it's like
the Jews.
I guess I'm thinking of it like in the sense of how the Bible is. Like you'd have like you'd have you'd have history, which we have in the Bible, and then with the epistles
No.
you're getting teaching, which these are like binding statements that Paul is making on the church. So like is that what Doctrines and Covenants is?
They're like teachings, but the problem is in a lot of them, like Paul teaches on the authority of the Spirit of God, but also in several places he teaches on like his own authority. He's like, hey, I think you should do this. I advise towards this and stuff. Whereas Joseph is like, this is all revelation from God. And I'm receiving this directly.
So like did you read the temple being built in Zion prophecy?
No, I didn't read that one.
Okay, I'll read the first couple sentences of that so you can get a sense of like, so what I just read is from 111. This is from DOC or DNC 84. So this is section 84 verses 1 through 5. A revelation of Jesus Christ onto his servant Joseph Smith, June and 6 elders, and then in the front of it it gives the time and the place in which it happens. As they united their hearts and lifted their voices on high. So he says this is explicitly a revelation of Jesus Christ onto his servant Joseph Smith. This is a prophecy from Joseph. Yea, the word of the Lord concerning his church, established in the last days for the restoration of his people, as he has spoken by the mouth of his prophets, for the gathering of his saints to stand upon Mount Zion, which shall be the city of New Jerusalem, which city shall be built beginning at the temple lot, which is appointed by the finger of the Lord, in the western boundaries of the state of Missouri, dedicated by the hand of Joseph Smith, June and the elders who were with him, whom the Lord was well pleased. Verily, this is the word of the Lord, that the new city, Jerusalem, the city of New Jerusalem, shall be built by the gathering of the saints, beginning at this place, even the place of the temple, which temple shall be reared in this generation, which didn't happen. For verily, this generation shall not pass away until a house shall be built unto the Lord, and a cloud shall rest upon it, which cloud shall be even the glory of the Lord, which shall fill the house. So he said, in this generation, the temple will be built on the lot in Missouri, in a prophecy, and that's within Doctrines and Covenants. So you have explicit prophecy at times, and other times it just is narrations of what's happening to Joseph, where he's going, what he's doing, and all that. See, it's a mixture.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like
It still proves Mormonism is false, but
I noticed you have 0 videos of your God healing anyone of visible illness or injury.
What?
Really?
That's not true.
That's not true.
Do you mean like on our page? Like, do you mean like on our YouTube
I just
page?
mean the internet.
Yeah, because the internet is full of videos of people being miraculously healed.
Right. Wes Huff has a video on it. Do you want to go check that out? It's pretty based.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, but also, you also have to understand that anytime anyone is healed, it is a miraculous healing of my God.
The body's amazing.
The body is pretty amazing.
your body specifically, Chase.
All
right. Well, with that, guys, it is 3.5 hours into the stream. I'm gonna clip that sound bite of me saying that, and I'm gonna
your body specifically.
Your body
so that is a replayable moment.
I'm about to record my Hadith of the day, which is a spicy one, and then a video. So, you want to get a sneak preview of the Hadith of the day?
Dude, let's hear it.
Yes.
All right. So this is Sahih Bukhari 3849, narrated Imar bin Maimum. Why is that name specific? Because that is the word for monkey. So this is literally
the son of the monkey.
The commander son of the monkey is what his name actually translates to.
Right.
So this is the son of the monkey is narrating. All right. During the pre-Islamic period of ignorance, I saw a she-monkey surrounded by a number of monkeys. They were all stoning it because it had committed illegal sexual intercourse. I, too, stoned it along with them. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari.
The pre-Islamic period of ignorance.
Yeah.
The animals were not ignorant, though.
This is the proof.
This is the proof. So that's going to be the hadith of the day today. I'll have another fun one tomorrow.
I think if I do another hadith of the day, I want to do the one about Aisha playing with dolls.
Oh yeah, I'm going to have a whole week of just Aisha ones.
I thought about that. I thought about just
Did you
including every time that she herself says that she was
a
that she
child.
was 6
Yeah.
and 9 or 7 and
Mhm.
10. Like I'm just gonna
Did
include
you,
all of them.
Have you seen IP's new stream with David where they go over that guy? What's his name? Canyon Mims, where he talks about he's like, Muhammad did not marry a child. He didn't marry a child.
I haven't
There are
seen that.
no dolls. What is that? No. And it was like he made. Oh, it was really funny just watching this guy crash out as a Muslim
Oh yeah.
about Aisha being 9, because the fact that he's saying that Muhammad didn't have sex with a 9-year-old, he's admitting that it would be wrong if he did. And so if we can prove that he did, then Islam is false. It's like these Mormons saying that the stories we told about Joseph Smith were ugly. They're true.
They happened, and you have to find you have to find a way to make them sound better.
Yeah.
Anywho, all right, guys. Well, this was fun. Have a good night. We will see this group of 3 specifically. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Mm.
Well, on what? We're still
We don't know
deciding. but we have something tomorrow.
Yeah.
See you all tomorrow. Have a good night.